Chapter 1474, Old, you do not unlock Jack, the strongest mixed blood before he reversed time. The world had trembled at that time with so much destruction. Gustav was frozen in disbelief and horror. Angie was the infamous being cloaked in light and darkness. A torrent of emotions overwhelmed him, a tumultuous storm that threatened to tear him apart from the inside. How could the entire embryo come to fear someone he cherished? How could Angie, with her gentle heart, become a symbol of terror? Amidst his turmoil, Angie charged towards him, her movements a blur of conflicting energies. Every instinct in Gustav's body screamed for him to defend himself, to prepare for the impending strike. But as she closed the distance, something miraculous happened. Inches away from him, Angie halted her own attack. With a visible struggle, she grasped her other hand, fighting against the darkness that sought to control her. "Gustav!" she called out, her voice a mixture of pain and desperation. Black tears streaked down her face, a poignant reflection of the battle raging within her. Gustav, still reeling from the shock, found a reservoir of strength he didn't know he possessed. He saw not the feared entity that stood before the world, but his girlfriend, tormented and torn by her own nature. Without a word, he closed the distance between them, pulling Angie into a fierce embrace. The warmth of his arms around her seemed to be the only real thing in this dimension of shadows and light. "Angie," he whispered, his voice steady yet laden with emotion, "I've got you." For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The higher dimension, with its eerie landscape and oppressive atmosphere, faded into the background. All that mattered was their connection. Angie's body tensed in his arms, the internal struggle evident. Yet, as she leaned into his embrace, there was a sense of surrender, a momentary peace amidst the storm. I'm so scared, Gustav," she managed to say, her voice breaking. "I don't want to hurt you." Gustav tightened his hold, a silent vow to protect her from the darkness that sought to claim her. "It will be fine. You will be fine," he assured her, his determination unwavering. Gustav and Angie shared a moment of profound sea as Angie's visage shifted between light and darkness. Her features began to glitch, distorting in an eerie display of her fractured existence. Her face, once a harmonious blend of her dual nature, now fluctuated uncontrollably, mirroring the internal turmoil that tore through her. It was as if the very fabric of her being was rejecting itself, a terrifying spectacle that left Endrik and Eldris frozen in horror. "Angie, are you?" Endrik began, his concern morphing into fear as Angie's eyes fixed on them with an intensity that burned with unrecognizable emotions. Without warning, Angie lunged forward, her movements erratic and disjointed like a marionette jerked by unseen strings. Her attack was swift, a blur of light and shadow that bore down on Eldris, and Endrik with the ferocity of a storm. Endrik reacted instantly, his instincts honed from countless battles kicking in. He conjured a telekinetic wall, a barrier of concentrated energy, hoping to buffer the assault. However, Angie's palm strike, charged with an unfathomable force, shattered the defense as if it were glass. The impact sent both Endrik and Eldris flying. However, Endrik had taken the hit directly, so he was more affected. His body cut through the air before crashing into the distance, blood trailing from his lips. Eldris, who wasn't fast enough to save Endrik, faced Angie's wrath as she conjured a dark blade, a manifestation of her turmoil, and charged in his direction. As the blade descended towards him, he tapped into his bloodline, draining the color and essence from the weapon in a desperate attempt to neutralize the attack. KRRRYHCCHH, the blade, fragmented upon contact, but the force behind her thrust unleashed an energy so potent that Eldris was hurled across the air, bleeding profusely from the shockwave that ravaged his body. Boom! Both figures lay battered, the realization dawning on them that they were no match for Angie in her current state. She advanced, her form glitching with every step, a terrifying specter poised to erase their very existence from this plane. It was at this moment, in the face of utter annihilation, that the air itself seemed to warp, and Gustav appeared between them and Angie. His arrival was marked by a surge of energy, his arm transformed, encased in silvery scales that emitted vibrant glows of power. With a roar that echoed through the dimension, he launched a decisive strike at Angie. The force of his attack collided with her, blasting her back with such intensity that it momentarily halted her assault. The air vibrated with the impact, a shock wave of energy rippling outwards, a testament to Gustav's might. Gustav wasted no time, rushing to Eldris and Endrik's side. "Are you both all right?" he asked, his voice laced with urgency and concern. Endrik, struggling to his feet with Gustav's support, coughed, wiping the blood from his mouth. "That was unexpected," he managed to say, his voice weak. Eldris, equally battered, nodded in agreement, his eyes on Gustav's transformed arm. "That is Angie. She isn't herself," he revealed, the defeat heavy in his voice. As Eldris' words pierced the charged atmosphere, Gustav's world came to a jarring halt. The revelation that the being before them, the entity that had become a harbinger of fear across the globe, was none other than Angie, struck him with a force greater than any physical blow. The realization dawned on him with the weight of 1,000 stars collapsing into a black hole. Angie, the first girl to ever show him what love was supposed to feel like. Gustav's gaze softened as he looked towards Angie, who was slowly regaining her composure, her form still glitching between darkness and light. Angie, this gentle soul he knew, was the same being who had appeared on Earth twice in the last couple of months, leaving a trail of devastation in her wake. He remembered it spread across the MBO, about how this half-white, half-black figure had laid down Grand Commander Cheyenne with an ease that sent shivers down the spine of the entire organization. He recalled how she went toe-to-toe with Anexion, their embrace, a sanctuary from the chaos surrounding them, culminated in an electric kiss, a symbol of their defiance against the darkness that sought to claim Angie. As their lips met, a miraculous transformation began to unfold. The dark, malevolent side of Angie, which had threatened to overwhelm her, started to retract, as if the purity of their connection was a light too bright for the shadows to endure. However, this moment of triumph was short-lived. The fabric of the dimension itself seemed to tremble as a new presence made its entrance. Emerging from the void was a being cloaked in flowing dark robes, a figure so imbued with darkness that the air around them thickened, heavy with a palpable sense of dread. His face could not be seen, but his presence and unfathomable dark power could be very much felt. "Ezriovi Fasvi Yuvi," he uttered in a strange tongue, his voice resonating with a power that seemed to command the very essence of the dimension. At his words, the darkness responded, bending to his will with a terrifying obedience. Beneath Gustav, Eldris, and Endrik, the carpet of darkness that had mirrored the void above suddenly shifted, becoming a trap that ensnared them. They found themselves sunk halfway into the dark matter, immobilized, as the terrain had become a prison designed to hold them captive. In the midst of this turmoil, Angie's demeanor shifted dramatically. The struggle and emotion that had just moments ago played across her face vanished, replaced by a listless, vacant expression. With a heart-wrenching detachment, she pulled away from Gustav's embrace and took her place beside the dark-robed being, as if drawn by an unseen force beyond her control. Gustav, Eldris, and Endrik struggled against their bonds, their efforts futile as they found themselves unable to move or even channel their bloodline powers. It was as if the very essence of their abilities had been nullified, leaving them powerless in the face of this new adversary. "You have no power here," the dark-robed being reminded Gustav. His voice cold and devoid of emotion, the statement hung in the air, a declaration of absolute control over the realm and its unwilling visitors. "Is it?" Eldris asked in horror as he panted since the darkness seemed to be incredibly choking. Gustav shook his head. He knew very well that this person was powerful, but also knew that it wasn't him. "Thank you for delivering yourself to our doorstep outworldly. I am sure you do not remember me, but we will have ample time to catch up since you will be trapped in her forever." The being spoke with a tone of familiarity. Gustav's frustration boiled over, his sense of helplessness clashing with his need to protect Angie and his friends. Chapter 1275, 100% confirmed. Captain Strum felt like he was hit by a moving orbital body as two of his arms uprooted from his body after receiving the fist from Gustav. Blood jetted out like a fountain as he slammed into the far end of the barrier, breaking straight through all the layers and continuously shooting out into space. FYI, Gustav's figure vanished, and he reappeared in space hundreds of feet before Captain Strum's body, which was still shooting forward. He gathered energy in his right arm as he arched it backwards, while clenching his fist tightly. His fist was coated in a golden and pinkish glow as he drove it forward at Captain Strum's approaching body. Boom. Space parted as Gustav's fist sent ripples across the endless expanse of darkness the moment it collided with Captain Strum. Bang, bang, bang. Stars in the distance got snuffed out from the destructive wave of energy that spread forth from Gustav's fist as Captain Strum shot downwards like a dying star. Through his body shot across the solar system as it descended towards the ninth disk, all of his limbs uprooted from his body as he fell unconscious even before he hit the battle stage. Boom. The battle stage got blasted to smithereens the moment Captain Strum came into contact with it, sending another wave of destructive ripples across the vicinity. Gustav reappeared in the stage at this moment as time came to a standstill again. He deactivated cosmic superiority at this point to make sure it wouldn't be active when time went back to normal. The glow emitted from Encore slowly whit-led as its figure began to disintegrate. Time stopped reversing, and everything that seemed to be in an illusionary state started solidifying. Strum had reversed time to the point where he just activated the full power of his Encore and was tossing Gustav around like a dirt bee. As time went back to normal functionality, the scene that the spectators would be witnessing was Gustav getting beat up. However, the moment time resumed, the entire stage suddenly appeared destroyed, and the scene the spectators were initially witnessing glitched. Like a video game playback, the spectators were completely astonished as they stared at the disgraded stage. One unconscious figure was completely laid on the ground with missing limbs, while another was standing before the unconscious one with an unbothered expression. What the hell just happened? Captain Crimson was taking a beating, and all of a sudden, Captain Strum is defeated. He looks bloodied and battered too. His Encore is gone too? This doesn't make any sense. How did this happen? The spectators were in an utter state of confusion, not recalling the events that played out after this point of the battle. Only a few spectators like the Council Lords and Miss stared at the stage with looks of understanding, but they still remained astonished. "The kid has truly grown more powerful than I realized," Miss Amy muttered. "HM? Young Miss, I sense time manipulation on a higher scale. What did we miss?" Grand Commander questioned from the side. "You didn't see it?" Miss Amy asked with a slightly surprised tone. Grand Commander Cheyenne was an alpha, so she had expected that even if he couldn't be completely immune to time-related abilities, he would at least be able to perceive the events ongoing during time manipulation and have memories of the original timeline. "I can only faintly sense that time has been altered on a large scale, but I have no recollection of how things exactly went," Grand Commander Cheyenne responded. "Maybe this is a good thing. They will remain unaware that Gustav is a cosmic superior being." Miss Amy was still surprised that someone as young as Strum was able to pull this off with an alpha lacking memories of the original timeline, but she decided to use this to Gustav's advantage. She proceeded to narrate to Grand Commander Cheyenne the events that played out while skipping the mention of Gustav's use of cosmic superiority. She didn't give him any explanation as to how Gustav was immune to time manipulation, which made the Grand Commander even more confused. But Miss Amy would rather leave him in confusion than let the Earth be aware of Gustav's cosmic superiority until the kid was ready to reveal it himself. Strum lost? But how? The Earth's captain seems to have broken out of his time manipulation. But how is this even possible? The Draconet spectators area was in shambles as Bronze medially clenched her fist so tightly a popping sound rang out. Even after everything he still lost, she voiced with a chilly tone, "That kid, the Earth's captain, he is a cosmic superior being. Anyone would have lost." The other's prestigious-looking fellow beside Bronze medially voiced out, "Why did you stop me from interfering?" "No one would have noticed if I did." She turned to stare at the Draken beside her with a look of anguish. It was a battle between the two youngsters. Oldies like us are not meant to interfere. It would be a disgrace to our great planet if we were to interfere in such matters. The Draken voiced with a dismissive tone. "Also, we are not the only ones who are aware of what went down." Another male Draken voiced from the side while staring in the direction of Earth's spectators area. Bronze medially gnashed her teeth while peering forward with a look of hatred. "How dare that Earthling do this to my son? Gustav Crimson, planet Earth, wins. 1,200 points attained." Amidst the confused gazes of the millions of spectators, Gustav exited the stage and walked towards the Earth's participants area. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad Captain Crimson won. But what the fuck just happened? Beats me. I don't understand a thing. Even the Earth spectators area was full of confused people. Gustav fellow team members were not left out of this confusion. "Wow, what did you do, Gus?" He questioned the moment Gustav arrived before them. "Long story. You all just can't remember because of strum time-related abilities." Gustav heaved a sigh of fatigue as he took a seat. He had expended a lot of energy to win that battle, and almost depleted his Yarki in the process. Yarki would have been long depleted if it wasn't mixed with the other ability Gustav unlocked after becoming a parallel being. "Good job, big brother," Endrick voiced from the side. "You saw it?" Gustav questioned, but instantly arrived at the answer before Endrick responded. "Time candidate perks," Gustav voiced. Endrick's mouth hung loosely for a bit before he answered. "Yes." "Oh?" "Endrick knows what happened." "Endrick, tell us, we're confused." "Spit it out, man." The group quickly clustered around Endrick, who eventually decided to give them a brief analysis of what happened while leaving a lot of parts out. The versus battle challenge continued while the spectators still couldn't get Gustav and Strum's battle out of their heads and kept trying to find answers as to what happened. "Big brother, I noticed something." Endrick approached Gustav. What is it?" Gustav questioned. "They witnessed it too," Endrick answered. "By they, do you mean?" Gustav glanced at Endrick with an expression of concern. Endrick nodded in response despite the fact that Gustav didn't complete his question. They're not supposed to be able to. This might be a problem." Gustav caressed his chin with a contemplative expression as he muttered, "Did you uncover anything about them last night?" Gustav asked. Not yet. I'm still looking." Endrick stuttered a little before responding. "You figured something out, didn't you?" Gustav's tone instantly turned suspicious. "I really am still looking into it. I have pieced what I saw together yet. And no, you can't help me do that. I have to confirm if I'm looking in the right direction first, so I don't mince information." Endrick answered with a sincere tone. "All right, do let me know when you figured it out," Gustav stated while turning to stare in the direction of Indulus Prime participants. Indulus Prime participants stood together in place with their pitch-black eyes on display. As usual, their expression remained unknown due to the wraps of bandage-like clothing covering the entirety of their figures. 100% confirmed. One of them voiced out, "It was just as I suspected," Captain Iron voiced with a tone of anticipation. "We have finally uncovered the outworldly." While they exchanged a few words over there, Endrick stood in place with a disturbed expression on his face as his forehead glowed with green light. "You told me everything was okay? How could this be?" Endrick yelled internally. "No, I told you that going on that mission would increase the chances of averting great calamity in his future, which was correct." Husarius answered, "Then what the hell did I see last night?" Endrick asked, "A better future compared to how things would have gone if you didn't act at all." Husarius replied, "You are crazy. You are crazy if you think I am going to let that happen." Chapter 1476, These Beautiful Things do not unlock as their spacecraft sliced through the velvet expanse of space, leaving behind the tumultuous events that had unfolded at the center of the universe. A quiet realization dawned upon Gustav and the others. The spacecraft's onboard calendar and time system, which had been synchronized with the standard galactic chronometer, revealed a startling discrepancy. The hours they had perceived to have spent navigating the chaotic other plane and confronting the mysteries of the center were, in reality, 3 weeks in the external universe. This revelation hung heavily in the air. It also bore grave implications. If someone from the Alliance sent a Five, and he had been waiting for us there for that long, it means that the Alliance most likely knows where we are, Gustav voiced in realization. The realization that their adversaries had been granted such an advantage cast a shadow of caution over their journey. They understood that their movements henceforth would be scrutinized, fraught with the danger of confrontation with forces gathered specifically to thwart them. Falco furrowed his brows in confusion at the mention of the Alliance and the apparent bounty on Gustav's head. "Just what happened while I was away?" he asked, his voice laced with a mixture of curiosity and concern. The time spent in the other plane, which amounted to a year over here, had wrought significant changes. Changes he was now struggling to comprehend. Gustav, sensing Falco's confusion and the need for clarity, decided it was time to shed light on the events that had transpired. About a year ago, after our return from Aesop, Gustav began with a steady voice. In the vast, uncharted expanse of space, where stars twinkled like distant beacons and planets spun silently in their celestial dance, a fleet of spacecraft cruised with purpose. Each vessel, visibly formidable, bore the marks of advanced technology and untold power. The flotilla moved as one, a synchronized ballet of metal and might cutting through the darkness like a blade. Within these spacecraft, the corridors hummed with the activity of beings from countless worlds. Despite their varied origins and the diversity of their appearances, from the tall, willowy figures with skin like the night sky to the rugged, stone-like creatures whose eyes glowed with inner fire, all were united under a common banner. They were clad in uniform outfits of silver, gray, and blue, the colors merging and shifting with a subtlety that spoke of high craftsmanship. Emblazoned on their chests was an emblem of profound significance, a hand cradling a universe, its spiral galaxies and nebulae nestled securely in the palm, a symbol of their oath to protect and serve the vast cosmos they called home. These were fleets from the Alliance Corps. Amidst the soft hum of the ship's engines and the quiet chatter of its crew, one of the commanders, a figure of imposing stature with skin that shimmered like the surface of a star, stepped forward. Her eyes, piercing and clear, reflected the depths of space itself. She approached the communication panel with a sense of urgency, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface to activate the general comms link connecting her to every ship in the fleet. "Attention, all units. Whatever this is, it's going to destroy everything." Falco nodded, his expression grim. "There's no point in staying here, and there is nothing to save. We have to leave immediately." The urgency of the situation left no room for debate. They gathered closer, preparing to escape the dying world. Gustav grabbed Eldris while Falco grabbed Rhea, violently pushing upwards with their legs. They cut through the air with immense speed, disappearing into the orbit. In a few moments, they appeared in outer space, floating before the charred and desiccated planet. Sing and Drick appeared beside them as they turned around to give the planet a lingering stare. The planet convulsed in its final moments. The dark mist surged with renewed vigor, enveloping everything in its path. The trembling of the ground reached a crescendo. They witnessed the planet's disintegration. From a safe distance, they watched as the world that had been their link to an otherwise disappointing rescue crumbled into ash. The planet's final moments were both horrific and mesmerizing. As the last remnants of the planet vanished into the void, a heavy silence fell over the group. The loss of an entire world, even one as desolate and forsaken as this, was a sobering reminder of the strength of the forces they were messing with. Just on the cusp of leaving the orbit at the very edge of the center of the universe, an event unfolded that defied all logic and reason, a phenomenon so surreal that it momentarily stilled the chaos of their thoughts and the ache in their hearts. Before their disbelieving eyes, the planet they had witnessed disintegrate into nothingness, consumed by a dark mist that heralded its doom, reappeared as if reborn from the ashes of its destruction. It was as though the universe itself had hit a reset button, presenting the planet in its original state, untouched by the cataclysmic forces that had ravaged its surface, the rifts that had torn the fabric of reality, the dark mist that had spread like a plague. All were gone, erased from existence. The group stood in stunned silence, their minds grappling with the impossible reality unfolding before them. The planet, with its desiccated landscapes and remnants of ancient civilizations, was exactly as they had found it upon their arrival, barren yet whole. How is this possible? Eldris murmured in astonishment. I don't understand, Rhea added, his eyes wide with disbelief. We saw it. It was gone. Falco scanned the horizon, his gaze piercing the void where the planet had vanished and reappeared. The rifts are gone. There is no sign of my father's influence as well, he stated, his tone reflective. As they pondered the unfathomable resurrection of the planet, a strange twist of fate revealed itself. The planet, a solid, tangible presence to them moments ago, vanished from their view, disappearing as suddenly as it had appeared. They all witnessed its disappearance except for Gustav. To his eyes, the planet remained visible, a ghostly image that hovered on the brink of reality and illusion. I can still see it, Gustav announced, his voice tinged with a mix of wonder and realization. It turned out that the planet just went back to bordering on existence and non-existence. We can't linger on this, Endrick finally said, breaking the spell of bewilderment that had enveloped them. We need to get back to our spacecraft, refresh and replan. They agreed with him and turned around to leave once more. As they made their way back, the repelling force surrounding the center of the universe did not hinder them, since it was only there to keep things out and not in. As the spacecraft loomed in the distance, a palpable shift in the atmosphere halted their progress. The surroundings trembled, not with the seismic activities of a planet, but with the presence of a force that seemed to distort the very fabric of space around them. Emerging from the ether, a figure materialized, its presence commanding yet devoid of any discernible features save for the unmistakable crimson tree-like hair that flowed and flickered like flames in a non-existent breeze. This being, faceless and imposing, exuded a power that felt ancient and unfathomable, its eyes non-existent, yet undeniably fixed upon them. Gustav, already burdened by the emotional weight of recent occurrences, felt a surge of irritation at this new challenge. His patience frayed, and his voice carried a dangerous edge as he addressed Epheve. We've been through enough. Leave us in peace, or I'll destroy you, he threatened, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. The faceless being, undeterred by Gustav's words, responded not with speech but with action. With a deliberate charge, It unleashed an energy so potent it rippled across the vast expanse of outer space, distorting the light of distant stars and sending a wave of foreboding through their minds. Falco unexpectedly stepped forward with unfathomable speed. With a swift motion, he launched himself at the faceless adversary, his fist imbued with the power of darkness so profound it caused the universe itself to swirl in response. The collision of forces was cataclysmic, a spectacle of power that reverberated through the cosmos. The impact sent the faceless being hurtling through space, its form streaking across the void like a comet gone awry. It ripped through the fabric of multiple stars, causing cracks in space as it streaked through galaxies while its form slowly broke apart, leaving a trail of cosmic destruction in its wake. The force of Falco's punch was so incredibly unbelievable, it seemed like a different person was standing before Gustav. The group stared at him in awe as they witnessed the aftermath. Falco, turning back to face Gustav, offered a nod of reassurance, his expression unreadable yet conveying a sense of unwavering resolve. "Let's go," he suggested. "Yet you're going to need to explain what the hell that was," Rhea voiced in adoration. Falco nodded once more as they resumed their path to the spacecraft. Chapter 1477, I'm smarter. Do not unlock this. Whatever this is, it's going to destroy everything. Falco nodded, his expression grim. There's no point in staying here, and there is nothing to save. We have to leave immediately. The urgency of the situation left no room for debate. They gathered closer, preparing to escape the dying world. Gustav grabbed Eldris while Falco grabbed Rhea, violently pushing upwards with their legs. They cut through the air with immense speed, disappearing into the orbit. In a few moments, they appeared in outer space, floating before the charred and desiccated planet. Sing, Endrick appeared beside them as they turned around to give the planet a lingering stare. The planet convulsed in its final moments. The dark mist surged with renewed vigor, enveloping everything in its path. The trembling of the ground reached a crescendo. They witnessed the planet's disintegration. From a safe distance, they watched as the world that had been their link to an otherwise disappointing rescue crumbled into ash. They witnessed the planet's disintegration. From a safe distance, they watched as the world that had been their link to an otherwise disappointing rescue crumbled into ash. The planet's final moments were both horrific and mesmerizing. As the last remnants of the planet vanished into the void, a heavy silence fell over the group. The loss of an entire world, even one as desolate and forsaken as this, was a sobering reminder of the strength of the forces they were messing with. Just on the cusp of leaving the orbit, at the very edge of the center of the universe, an event unfolded that defied all logic and reason, a phenomenon so surreal that it momentarily stilled the chaos of their thoughts and the ache in their hearts. Before their disbelieving eyes, the planet they had witnessed disintegrate into nothingness, consumed by a dark mist that heralded its doom, reappeared as if reborn from the ashes of its destruction. It was as though the universe itself had hit a reset button, presenting the planet in its original state, untouched by the cataclysmic forces that had ravaged its surface, the rifts that had torn the fabric of reality, the dark mist that had spread like a plague. All were gone, erased from existence. The group stood in stunned silence, their minds grappling with the impossible reality unfolding before them. The planet, with its desiccated landscapes and remnants of ancient civilizations, was exactly as they had found it upon their arrival, barren yet whole. How is this possible? Eldris murmured in astonishment. "I don't understand," Rhea added, his eyes wide with disbelief. "We saw it. It was gone." Falco scanned the horizon, his gaze piercing the void where the planet had vanished and reappeared. "The rifts are gone. There is no sign of my father's influence as well," he stated, his tone reflective. as they pondered the unfathomable resurrection of the planet. A strange twist of fate revealed itself. The planet, a solid, tangible presence to them moments ago, vanished from their view, disappearing as suddenly as it had appeared. They all witnessed its disappearance except for Gustav. To his eyes, the planet remained visible, a ghostly image that hovered on the brink of reality and illusion. "I can still see it," Gustav announced, his voice tinged with a mix of wonder and realization. It turned out that the planet just went back to bordering on existence and non-existence. "We can't linger on this," Endrick finally said, breaking the spell of bewilderment that had enveloped them. "We need to get back to our spacecraft, refresh and replan." They agreed with him and turned around to leave once more. As they made their way back, the repelling force surrounding the center of the universe did not hinder them, since it was only there to keep things out and not in. As the spacecraft loomed in the distance, a palpable shift in the atmosphere halted their progress. The surroundings trembled, not with the seismic activities of a planet, but with the presence of a force that seemed to distort the very fabric of space around them. Emerging from the ether, a figure materialized, its presence commanding yet devoid of any discernible features save for the unmistakable crimson, tree-like hair that flowed and flickered like flames in a non-existent breeze. This being, faceless and imposing, exuded a power that felt ancient and unfathomable, its eyes non-existent yet undeniably fixed upon them. Gustav, already burdened by the emotional weight of recent occurrences, felt a surge of irritation at this new challenge. His patience frayed, and his voice carried a dangerous edge as he addressed Tefeve. "We've been through enough. Leave us in peace, or he'll destroy you," he threatened, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. The faceless being, undeterred by Gustav's words, responded not with speech but with action, with a deliberate charge. It unleashed an energy so potent it rippled across the vast expanse of outer space, distorting the light of distant stars and sending a wave of foreboding through their minds. Falco unexpectedly stepped forward with unfathomable speed. With a swift motion, he launched himself at the faceless adversary, his fist imbued with the power of darkness so profound it caused the universe itself to swirl in response. The collision of forces was cataclysmic, a spectacle of power that reverberated through the cosmos. The impact sent the faceless being hurtling through space, its form streaking across the void like a comet gone awry. It ripped through the fabric of multiple stars, causing cracks in space as it streaked through galaxies while its form slowly broke apart, leaving a trail of cosmic destruction in its wake. The force of Falco's punch was so incredibly unbelievable, it seemed like a different person was standing before Gustav. The group stared at him in awe as they witnessed the aftermath. Falco, turning back to face Gustav, offered a nod of reassurance, his expression unreadable, yet conveying a sense of unwavering resolve. "Let's go," he suggested. "Yet you're going to need to explain what the hell that was," Rhea voiced in adoration. Falco nodded once more as they resumed their path to the spacecraft. As their spacecraft sliced through the velvet expanse of space, leaving behind the tumultuous events that had unfolded at the center of the universe, a quiet realization dawned upon Gustav and the others. The spacecraft's onboard calendar and time system, which had been synchronized with the standard galactic chronometer, revealed a startling discrepancy. The hours they had perceived to have spent navigating the chaotic other plane and confronting the mysteries of the center were, in reality, 3 weeks in the external universe. This revelation hung heavily in the air. It also bore grave implications. If someone from the Alliance sent Tefeve, and he had been waiting for us there for that long, it means that the Alliance most likely knows where we are, Gustav voiced in realization. The realization that their adversaries had been granted such an advantage cast a shadow of caution over their journey. They understood that their movements henceforth would be scrutinized, fraught with the danger of confrontation with forces gathered specifically to thwart them. Falco furrowed his brows in confusion at the mention of the alliance and the apparent bounty on Gustav's head. "Just what happened while I was away?" he asked, his voice laced with a mixture of curiosity and concern. The time spent in the other plane, which amounted to a year over here, had wrought significant changes. Changes he was now struggling to comprehend. Gustav, sensing Falco's confusion and the need for clarity, decided it was time to shed light on the events that had transpired. About a year ago, after our return from Aesop, Gustav began with a steady voice. In the vast, uncharted expanse of space, where stars twinkled like distant beacons and planets spun silently in their celestial dance, a fleet of spacecraft cruised with purpose. Each vessel, visibly formidable, bore the marks of advanced technology and untold power. The flotilla moved as one, a synchronized ballet of metal and might, cutting through the darkness like a blade. Within these spacecraft, the corridors hummed with the activity of beings from countless worlds, despite their varied origins and the diversity of their appearances. From the tall, willowy figures with skin like the night sky to the rugged, stone-like creatures whose eyes glowed with inner fire, all were united under a common banner. They were clad in uniform outfits of silver, gray, and blue, the colors merging and shifting with a subtlety that spoke of high craftsmanship. Emblazoned on their chests was an emblem of profound significance, a hand cradling a universe, its spiral galaxies and nebulae nestled securely in the palm, a symbol of their oath to protect and serve the vast cosmos they called home. These were fleets from the Alliance Corps. Amidst the soft hum of the ship's engines and the quiet chatter of its crew, one of the commanders, a figure of imposing stature with skin that shimmered like the surface of a star, stepped forward. Her eyes, piercing and clear, reflected the depths of space itself. She approached the communication panel with a sense of urgency, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface to activate the general comms link, connecting her to every ship in the fleet. "Attention, all units. Chapter 1478, The Patent, Do Not Unlock. We've successfully steered the evildoers away from our God. They were led astray by the illusion, just as planned." At the mention of this news, a wave of jubilation swept through the crew. Cheers and exclamations filled the air as they took pride in their accomplishment. They had managed to protect who they claimed was their deity, a figure of immense importance and reverence to them, from the prying eyes and potentially malevolent intentions of the Alliance fleet. The crew gathered around their leader, their faces alight with the glow of victory. "Our God remains safe, thanks to your ingenuity," one of the crew members said, admiration evident in their tone. "Yes, but let us not forget, this was a collective effort," the leader responded, keen to share the credit with the entire team. "Our unity and dedication to our cause have once again proven that we can overcome any threat that seeks to disturb our sanctity." "All hail the Gustavo Alliance," one of the crew members yelled. "All hail the Gustavo Alliance." Everyone else chanted in response before returning to their duty posts. The leader, still basking in the aftermath of their successful deception, was momentarily interrupted by the sharp chirp of an incoming transmission. The device on his wrist, a band of technology far advanced, flickered to life, casting a soft glow on his features. He tapped the device, accepting the transmission with a practiced motion, his expression shifting to one of anticipation. The holographic display projected in front of him buzzed into clarity, revealing the face of another crew member stationed thousands of light years away on a distant mission. The visible background suggested they were aboard another vessel, one equally equipped for the tasks at hand. "Esovina," the distant crew member began, his voice crackling slightly over the connection. "I bring news from the front lines." The leader leaned forward, his interest piqued. Go on, he encouraged, sensing the importance of the message. We've successfully taken control of Tevelin planet in the name of Gustav, the crew member reported, a triumphant smile breaking across his face. Their defenses were no match for our strategy and power. The planet and its resources are now at our disposal, ready to support our cause. Upon hearing this news, a wave of jubilation similar to the earlier celebration washed over the leader. His eyes sparkled with delight, and a broad smile stretched across his face. "Excellent work," he exclaimed, his voice resonating with pride and satisfaction. "This is a significant victory for our cause. With this, our Lord Gustav will have it easier when completing his mission to free the universe of life." In the silent, star-strewn expanse of space, Gustav and the others journeyed onwards, their spacecraft cutting a solitary path through the stars. Unbeknownst of what had happened with one of the Alliance commanders, Gustav guided their vessel with the precision of one well-versed in the intricacies of space travel. Meanwhile, the Eldris and Rhea gathered around Falco, their curiosity piqued about his time in the other plane, a realm that remained shrouded in mystery and intrigue. Falco's gaze looked distant, as if he was peering through the veil of his memories. He began to unravel his tale. "I was unconscious for most of it," he admitted, his voice tinged with a hint of solemnity. "It felt like a lifetime, an endless drift in the void. I was in the process of transitioning since I was to accept my heritage and become a full-fledged being of darkness like my father. But Angie's case is a bit different." The mention of Angie, however, brought a visible shift in Gustav's demeanor. His concern for her well-being had always been palpable, a bond that went beyond mere companionship. "What of Angie?" Gustav interjected, unable to mask the disturbance that Falco's mention of her evoked. "What happened to her in that plane?" Falco sighed, a gesture of regret for the scant information he could offer. "Angie, she had been tampered with long before I regained consciousness. From what I gathered, half of her existence is still tied to our plane, which grants her the ability to move between dimensions. The other half, however, binds her to that plane, making her a being of its essence." He paused, letting the gravity of his words sink in. "My father," Falco continued, "is the Lord of Darkness, the master of that plane, a figure of immense power who answers only to one other, whose name I cannot speak. The dark plane is incredibly vast and divided into about 1,000 parts. The realm you entered, where you found me, and Angie belongs to Amir. He was in charge of making sure my transition goes smoothly, and also tampering with Angie's essence, as well as her physique." "Amir, I've heard that name before," Rhea voiced in contemplation. "The Death Angels, he's their owner or something," Gustav answered from up ahead. "Oh, yes. I remember now. They called them Amir Death Angels." Rhea recalled their incident on planet Ozius, and of course the beings of darkness that caused death to follow in their trail. "So that was him Endrick and Eldris met," Rhea added with a look of bewilderment. "Yeah, he commands the most lethal fleet of the Dark Plane, the Death Angels, and believe me, they are way more powerful than what we saw in planet Ozius. If I had taken even a little longer to get you three out of there, we would be trapped in forever. Amir only stopped momentarily because I told him to." A heavy silence followed Falco's revelation. The implications of their venture into that plane, into Amir's realm, began to dawn on them. Had it been the highest realm, Falco added, a sobering note to his tone, you guys would already be long dead. The realm's very in danger, and in the beings that inhabit them. Amir's realm, while perilous, is but a fraction of what the highest realm holds, which is also where most of my father's counterparts dwell. The others absorbed Falco's account, the reality of their narrow escape, and the complexity of the plane they had ventured into becoming increasingly clear. The revelation that Angie's very essence was split between dimensions and the power dynamics of the other plane painted a picture of a universe far more intricate and perilous than they had imagined. Gustav, processing the information, felt a mix of frustration and determination. So, Angie is caught in the middle of all this. He mused aloud, his resolve hardening. We need to find a way to help her, to bring her back fully to our plane, without the other half pulling her back there. Falco nodded, acknowledging the challenge that lay ahead. It won't be easy, he cautioned. My father's plane is governed by rules and powers that are ancient and deeply entrenched. Eldris, whose sharp intuition missed little, caught onto the recurrent mention of a father by Falco, a term laden with an unexpected familiarity when referring to the formidable being that governed the other plane. Eldris' curiosity pierced the veil of unspoken stories. Falco, you've been referring to this entity as your father. Have you truly accepted the lord of that other plane as your father? Falco, caught off guard by his own unguarded references, hesitated. The question unearthed a slew of memories and emotions, drawing him back to a series of encounters that had irrevocably altered the course of his existence. It's not as straightforward as acceptance or denial, Falco began, his voice tinged with the complexity of his feelings. My father, he would visit me in human form. Despite the bindings that held me, he wanted me to feel comfortable, to see him not just as a lord of darkness, but as someone familiar, someone paternal. Rhea found himself puzzled by Falco's explanation. But how exactly is he your father? You have an earthly father, don't you? He asked, trying to piece together the seemingly conflicting pieces of Falco's lineage. The question hung in the air, a challenge to the very nature of identity and belonging. Falco's gaze drifted away, lost in the complexities of his dual heritage. Before he could respond, Gustav, driven by a blend of concern and intrigue, pressed for clarity. It's complicated, doesn't quite cut it. Falco, how is it possible to have two fathers? One, an ordinary man from Earth, and the other, an extraordinary being that governs the very essence of darkness? If anyone from Earth had heard Gustav call Falco's father an ordinary man, they would probably headbutt him, since they knew just how stinking rich he was. However, to Gustav, that didn't even begin to measure up compared to the power of the entity that governed the dark plane. Falco sighed, realizing that the truth could no longer remain shrouded in the half-light of evasion. To understand the story of my existence, you must first let go of conventional notions of family and lineage. His words piqued their curiosity, causing everyone to lean forward in readiness. Chapter 1479, Woes of Imbalance, Attention. All units, she began, her voice resonating through the comms, commanding yet imbued with a sense of shared purpose. We are entering the sector where Gustav Crimson was last detected. I want an APB scan initiated immediately. He is a master of evasion, but he is not beyond our reach. Stay sharp and report any anomalies. Remember, he is not to be underestimated. Her orders dispatched, the commander stepped back from the console, her gaze fixed on the star-studded void ahead. The fleet responded to her command with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Across the ships, crew members sprang into action, their fingers flying over controls as scanners hummed to life, casting an invisible net wide into the depths of space in search of their elusive target. The search for Gustav Crimson, a name that had become a whisper of legend across star systems. Each ship, a beacon of their unwavering commitment, sailed through the darkness, united in their pursuit. Their scan net was connected, and well boosted due to the vast resources of the Alliance, so even if a spacecraft was a light year away, they would be able to detect it. They soon detected a spacecraft that seemed similar to the structure of the one they were informed about. However, it seemed really distant, as the fleet, under the command of the determined and formidable commander, made its way through the star-dotted blackness of space towards the oddly shaped spacecraft detected 7 light-years away. The air was thick with anticipation and readiness for battle. "Adjust course. Set bearings to intercept the target," the commander instructed, her voice echoing authoritatively through the ship's intercoms. Her gaze was fixed on the main view screen, where the solitary blip representing the spacecraft began to grow larger as they approached. The spacecraft was also moving speedily, but it was no match for the Alliance core fleets. They could use hyperjump a number of times to boost their speed and wouldn't run out. As the fleet neared the location, every member aboard the vessels stood ready, activating their abilities and arming themselves with weaponry. The silence was almost tangible, a prelude to the storm they anticipated would soon break. Suddenly, the calm was shattered. "Commander, the radar is picking up anomalies," reported a sensor technician, confusion lacing his voice. "The target, it's multiplying." The commander frowned, stepping closer to the radar display. In moments, what had been a single entity on their screens began to duplicate, first into 2, then into 20, and soon after into thousands of distinct signals. The fleet, poised for a singular confrontation, now faced a legion of spacecraft, a development that defied logic and experience. "What in the cosmos is happening?" murmured one of the officers, his voice a mixture of disbelief and concern. The commander, her mind racing through possibilities, maintained her composure. "All ships prepare for evasive maneuvers. Defensive formations now," she commanded, her voice cutting through the confusion like a blade. "And someone give me an analysis of what we're dealing with." The fleet were only about 20 in number. Having to face thousands of spacecraft was no simple feat. It would be impossible to come out unscathed, if they came out at all. As the fleet scrambled to respond to the sudden multiplication of the target, theories abounded. Could be a cloaking device or some sort of holographic projection, suggested one of the tactical officers trying to make sense of the phenomenon. Or a trap, added another, the word hanging ominously in the air. As they closed in, the thousands of signals began to move with an uncanny synchronization, swirling around the fleet in a mesmerizing dance that seemed almost alive. The beauty of the display, however, did little to mask the growing concern among the crew. What had started as a mission to track down a single spacecraft had escalated into a situation that none of them had anticipated or prepared for. The commander, watching the display, knew they had to act swiftly. "Launch the unraveled drones. I want a closer look at those ships and analysis down to the last atom," she decided, her mind clear despite the unfolding chaos. As the drones darted forward, relaying real-time images back to the fleet, the true nature of the multiplying spacecraft began to reveal itself. The images showed not thousands of ships, but rather reflections, echoes of the original spacecraft, refracted through what appeared to be a field of energy. "It's some sort of reflective shield, a defense mechanism that creates duplicates of the ship across different points in space," explained the chief science officer, all mixed with a hint of respect in his voice. Ingenious, the realization that they were not facing an armada, but a single ship with an advanced cloaking mechanism, shifted the dynamics of the encounter. The commander, piecing together the information, formed a plan. "Cease all offensive maneuvers. Let's not fall into the trap of fighting phantoms," she ordered, her mind racing ahead. "The real spacecraft must be." She looked around while closing her eyes. "There," she pointed, her voice steady and imbued with a commanding presence. "Ignore the mirages. Focus on that quadrant. Our quarry is there, hiding in plain sight." Her fleet, a collection of the finest ships the Alliance had to offer, responded with immediate compliance. The deadly vessels dove into the direction indicated, cutting through space with the precision of a well-practiced squadron. They ignored the thousands of reflections, focusing instead on the emptiness between, where intuition suggested their true target lay. As they advanced, the sea of Mirage spacecraft began to thin, revealing the vast nothingness of space. It was here, amidst the void, that they spotted a single spacecraft actively fleeing from their position. The chase was on. The fleet, reinvigorated by the sight of their prey attempting escape, surged forward with renewed vigor, their engines blazing trails of light in the darkness. Just as they were about to close in on the elusive spacecraft, just as victory seemed within their grasp, the target vanished. Not just the one they pursued, but every last one of the thousands of reflections that had surrounded them. Space, once filled with the light of countless ships, was now empty, a void that mocked their efforts with its silence. The commander and her fleet were stunned, disbelief written across the faces of every crew member who had witnessed the impossible escape. Before they could process the turn of events, before strategies and theories could be formulated, space itself seemed to betray them. A suction force, powerful and irresistible, pulled at the fleet, drawing them forward into an uncontrollable swirl. The ships, caught in the grip of this unseen Malik, began to spin, their formations breaking. No matter how much they tried to steer away, the fleet continued to stir. Amidst the chaos, a massive holographic projection appeared in space, a visage so familiar it sent a ripple of shock through the fleet. It looked like an image of Gustav, towering over them with a presence that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. His voice, amplified to match his colossal projection, filled the void. "You thought you could catch me," he began, a hint of amusement in his tone. "I was always one step ahead. This," he gestured to the space around them, "the trap they had unwittingly sprung, was my design. A simple trick, and yet you fell for it." His laughter, deep and resonating, echoed across the stars, a sound that would haunt the Alliance fleet for cycles to come. "The Alliance will never be able to catch me," he declared, his voice carrying the weight of his conviction. "You are playing a game you cannot win." With that, the massive holographic display vanished, leaving the fleet spinning in the aftermath of the suction force. The commander, her crew, and the entire squadron were left in a state of turmoil, both physically from the swirling trap they had yet to escape, and mentally from the realization of their failure. As the ships gradually regained control, pulling out of the uncontrollable spin, the commander faced her crew, her expression one of resolve amidst the setback. "This isn't the end," she said, her voice a beacon of determination in the darkness. "It'll get you Gustav Crimson." Far removed from the tumultuous scene of the fleet caught in a trap in a secluded part of space that remained untouched by the chaos, stood a being before an advanced device. This device, an intricate array of pulsating lights and swirling energy cores, was responsible for projecting the colossal hologram of Gustav that had deceived the Alliance fleet. The being, while humanoid in appearance, was distinctly non-human, its skin shimmering with an ethereal glow that suggested a nature far beyond the ordinary. As the projection faded away, the being stepped back from the device, turning to face the crew that manned this hidden outpost. They, like their companion, were of various shapes and sizes, each bearing unique traits that marked them as members of different species, united under a common cause. "We've done it," the being announced, its voice carrying a mix of relief and triumph. Chapter 1480 Slay. In every being there oozed indescribable power that was beyond the comprehension of ordinary folks. At the top of the circular structured stacks, 9 out of 10 pulpits were occupied, leaving the last one empty. The beings at the top got to look down on the others that were spread across the ethereal-looking vicinity. "We don't want him killed. The bounty on him should remain the same as before. Wanted alive," General Chell addressed the Alliance from the top of the stack. A few murmurs could be heard from the surroundings, but they couldn't refute It was Earth's decision, and they had all decided to honor it. They continued with the meeting after a few moments. Ikurla, Arkun Kok vows it. One of the beings at the very top of the circular stack spoke in a language that no human would be able to understand. Fortunately, every being present within this structure had their translation devices equipped. So, despite the differences in languages between extraterrestrial species, they could hear one another. The universal fugitive was last spotted in the Zelios Tower. He was lost before the Alliance could get to him. The extraterrestrial being who was among the council of the Alliance leader voiced loudly, "We need as much information as we can get to understand his motives and movement to capture him. Our forces are spread too thin. You lots have to volunteer warriors from your planets to join the Alliance Corps." The extraterrestrial being who represented planet Draconet chimed loudly. A glowing light appeared above that read Ozius. Everyone peered in the direction of the planet Ozius representative, who happened to be Vilex's father. It was quite the fall from grace for them, because usually they'd be at the highest circular stack with the others. Planet Ozius, one of the Alliance leaders voiced. The pulpit before Handler 3 emitted a white glow which gave him the go-ahead to speak. "The information on the universal fugitive is not up to date," he announced with a tone of certainty. "What do you mean, not up to date?" General Chell questioned with a look of concern. The other Alliance leaders were just as curious after hearing that. The last time Gustav Crimson was spotted, not spotted. Handler 3 paused for a bit. Gustav Crimson didn't leave the Zelios Tower alone. He left with a group that included my son. Mummers, Handler 3 went on to narrate the turn of events dating back from when the Oxus group went with Gustav in search of Seafling to when they found him, and all they had to do to save their lost people. He didn't leave out the part about Gustav being the major key to victory, and how they saved many other species with his help. A lot of the planetary representatives, especially the Alliance leaders, were getting restless as they listened to his narration. This was mostly because Gustav had just accomplished something that had taken them centuries of failures. Seafiling, who was practically impossible to locate, was found and dealt with by a child who was only a bit older than 20 years of age. Not only that, he had saved the lives of many others in the process, making the whole saga about him being a planet destroyer seem ridiculous. He was supposed to be evil, but Handler 3's exposition was putting a dent in his evil reputation, and it didn't help their objective to have him captured. "Seafiling is dead?" Another Alliance leader blurted out in disbelief. "Yes, he is gone forever, and we have Gustav Crimson to thank for that. He saved the lives of billions. Not to mention recovering my people," Handler 3 answered. "But he is responsible for the destruction of your planet in the first place. This must be his way of trying to make up for it. He is still guilty," another Alliance leader voiced. What if he isn't? Handler 3 didn't know when he blurted it out. 2 days later, Flyish, a pentagon-shaped spacecraft with the Tark's emblem, drifted across space with incredible speed. The twinkling, icy glows in the distance gave that part of space a surreal beauty. It was the only source of illumination around there, as dark matter spread, as far as the eyes could see. A few space rocks were scattered about the place, but the spacecraft streaked forward undisturbed. The spacecraft cut a blazing white line through the space in front of it, obliterating the rocks in its path. Within the spacecraft, the passengers remained strapped to their seats as they vibrated constantly, emitting a blinking yellow light in the control room. Okay, so where exactly are we going now? Rhea realized he had never asked until that moment. Well, did we tell you about the time we visited Zelios Tower? Endrick questioned from the side. You too visited Zelios Tower? Eldris was in disbelief while Rhea was completely clueless. That's how we got information about how to get to the other side, Endrick answered while trying to sound spooky. I thought that place was just a legend. To think it truly exists, Eldris replied deep in thought. What is this Zelios Tower? Rhea questioned. It's a place that can get you the answers to any question, but Usually the price is hefty. Most times impossible to pay, Endrick explained with a solemn tone. Isn't it just cash? Rhea voiced with a clueless look. No, Eldris and Endrick stated at the same time. Chill. Rhea moved his neck backward in startlement. Eldris turned to face Endrick once more. So they told you how to get Falco and Angie back. They told us where to head and what to do after we got there to gain access to bring them back. That is where we are headed now, Endrick answered once more. Does that mean we will finally get to pay back those monsters for ruining Aesop and destroying planet Osius? Rhea questioned with anticipation. No, Endrick shook his head. Why? This is our chance for a payback, Rhea voiced with confusion etched on his face. You don't know, do you? Endrick turned his seat around to face them. No, what? The reason Gustav doesn't want any of you two there is that the other side is a lot different from our plane. This means that the strength of creatures from there wouldn't be dampened. They will be able to use their full power, Endrick explained in a grave tone. Rhea's eyes widened in realization. That wasn't their full power. Not even close, Endrick answered. Rhea recalled the death angels corroding everything in existence with just their presence, being unkillable and incredibly powerful. There was an explosion at the back of his mind when he realized that they would be way more powerful on that plane, not to mention that our strengths would have been dampened. Endrick's revelation caused Rhea to gulp saliva. Thankfully, Big Brother knows how to counter that, he added. So we're not going there to fight. Not at all. We're only going to get our friends back. If we have any luck, we won't need to face any creature from there, Endrick pointed out. How are we going to do that? Rhea didn't see how it was possible to not encounter any being from there, because the access point will be taking us directly to the people we're searching for. It's possible we could encounter beings from that plane, but if we act quickly, it's also possible that we won't. Within the vicissitudes of space, a platform shaped like a syringe floated in place, giving off an imposing aura. From afar, it seemed very tiny, almost like it could be overlooked and missed. However, the moment one drew closer, the size underwent an unbelievable change, becoming incredibly massive and eye-catching. Lines of white light surrounded it on all corners as it radiated in such an indescribable manner. Spacecrafts flew into the perimeter and vanished as soon as they got bathed in the white lines of light it emitted. Within the heart of this structure was a sort of assembly point. The interior looked so masterfully erected that one would think they had entered a higher dimension. The surroundings were bathed in inklings of starlights, and the assembly point was structured in a circular format with smooth surfaces forming a spiral. They were like stacks upon one another, and they got smaller the higher one went. In the middle of each circular stack, stations that looked like pulpits protruded from the bottom all the way to the top. Thousands of those pulpits also represented thousands of extraterrestrial species who stood before them to represent their various planets. Planet Fixic, Planet Diaperonian, Planet Draconet, Planet Osius, Planet Hixto, Planet Diov, Planet Tronvita, Planet Oxlurk, Planet Triptez, Planet Gundabalt, Planet Zillion, Planet Claxosape, Planet Taurin, Planet Cyrus, Planet Osiris, Planet Orion, Planet Estambid, Planet VA, Planet Roidenstack, Planet V#B, Planet Kivendale, Planet T429, and so many other that participated in Aesop were all represented there by various extraterrestrial parties. Chapter 1480. 1. This isn't what I wanted, Angie. Fight this. Don't let this ugly bastard pull your strings like a damn puppet, he called out to her, hoping to reach the part of her that still remembered who she was, who they were to each other. Angie's gaze met his for a fleeting moment, a spark of recognition flickering in her eyes before being extinguished, as if snuffed out by the overwhelming darkness that surrounded them. Gustav's heart ached at the sight. a tumult of emotions raging within him as he struggled against the enveloping darkness that sought to claim him and the others. Not long after, Endrick, Ealdris, and Gustav started showing signs of a terrifying transformation. They then realized that the longer they stayed trapped in the sinister embrace of the dark matter, the more they were going to transform. As time went by, their figures started to darken, an ominous indication that their existence was slowly merging with the dimension. Despair clawed at Gustav as he witnessed the gradual fading of Endrick and Ealdris, their identities being swallowed by the relentless darkness. However, unlike them, Gustav's body resisted the darkening effect, and although his physical form remained unaltered, he found himself ensnared, unable to break free from the dark clutches that held him captive. Desperation set in as he reached deep within himself, attempting to awaken the slumbering force of cosmic superiority. The power, a rare and formidable force, lay dormant, stubbornly eluding his grasp when he needed it most. Endrick also tried calling upon Husarius, but their links seemed to have been disconnected upon his arrival in that plane. Time was a luxury they did not have, as Endrick and Ealdris teetered on the brink of complete integration with the dimension. Frustration mounted within Gustav as he realized the grim fate awaiting them if he failed to act. In a final, desperate plea, he yelled at the dark being, "Free them, or I swear I'll erase you from existence." His voice, laden with a mix of threats and despair, echoed through the dimension, a feeble challenge to the overwhelming power before them. The being, shrouded in darkness, responded with a laugh that chilled the air around them, his robes rippling as if amused by Gustav's futile defiance. "Like I told you earlier, you have no power here," he taunted, his voice a sinister whisper that seemed to emanate from the darkness. Phew, just as all hope seemed lost, a new figure emerged within the realm, cutting through the oppressive atmosphere with an aura of unbridled power. "What are you doing here?" Gustav yelled after spotting the newly arrived figure. Falco's arrival was marked by a surge of energy that rippled across the dimension. After making contact with Ealdris and Endrick, a miraculous transformation occurred. Their bodies, which had started to succumb to the darkness, reverted to their original color, the ominous integration halted by Falco's intervention. The dark being moved to intercept him, his robes billowing menacingly as he prepared to exert his control. However, Falco's voice, commanding and resolute, stopped him in his tracks. "Amir, as your next Exer, I command you to stop." The authority in his words was undeniable, imbued with a power that even Amir could not ignore. The realm fell silent for a moment, the tension palpable as the balance of power shifted. Falco seized the opportunity, his actions swift and decisive. He grabbed Gustav, Ealdris, and Endrick, pulling them out of the dark matter's grasp with an ease that belied the gravity of their situation. Without a moment's hesitation, he vanished with them, leaving the surroundings behind. Angie and the being named Amir remained. Why did I? Amir was astonished at how Falco had managed to leave him momentarily short of words. He realized that Falco was much more powerful than they had anticipated. "My lord would have my head." Falco, Gustav, Endrick, and Ealdris emerged from the rift, reappearing on the desolate terrain beside the ancient monolith. Their arrival was not marked by the triumphant air of victors, but rather enveloped in a palpable cloud of regret and sorrow. The atmosphere was thick, heavy with the weight of what had transpired in the other plane and the haunting absence of one of their own. Rhea, who had been waiting anxiously, rushed towards them, his eyes scanning their faces for any sign of Angie. The question hung in the air, unspoken yet deafening in its silence. "Where's Angie?" he finally asked with a fragile whisper. Gustav simply shook his head, a silent gesture that conveyed the depth of their failure. He walked away from the group, finding solace in the solitude of his thoughts as he sat on the barren ground, his posture one of utter dejection. Eldris, his expression somber, took it upon himself to recount their harrowing experience. He spoke of how they had come tantalizingly close to rescuing Angie, only to be thwarted by an overwhelming darkness and a being named Amir. He explained how their existence had almost been integrated into the dimension, their fate sealed if not for Falco's timely intervention. Caught in a maelstrom of emotions, Gustav's frustration and sorrow manifested in a burst of anger directed at Falco. "Why didn't you get Angie to?" he demanded, his voice laced with a mix of accusation and desperation. Falco, unfazed by the outburst, responded with a calmness that seemed out of place amidst the turmoil. "I wanted to, more than anything," he said, his voice carrying the weight of unspoken pain. "Ooh, but we had to leave immediately. If my father had intervened, none of us would have made it back. Amir could only be incapacitated by my command for a moment. And I haven't fully embraced my transition. It was all I could do." His words hung in the air, a sobering reminder of the delicate balance of power and the sacrifices made in the face of insurmountable odds. As the group grappled with their emotions, the reality of their situation settling heavy on their shoulders, the monolith began to pulse, a prelude to the closing of the rifts. It was their cue, the final moments before the pathways between dimensions sealed permanently, a bitter reminder of their loss and the price of their journey. Suddenly, the air shifted, a tangible change that drew their attention back to the monolith. The rifts, supposed to be closing, began to ripple, pulsating with an energy that was both unfamiliar and intense. The fabric of space seemed to warp around the monolith, the boundaries between planes blurring as an unforeseen force exerted its will upon the natural order. "What's happening?" Rhea asked, his voice a mix of trepidation and awe. He stepped backwards. "I don't know, but it's not supposed to be like this," Endrick replied, his gaze fixed on the monolith, trying to decipher the cause of the anomaly. As they watched, the rifts expanded, the pulsating energy growing in intensity, threatening to engulf the monolith and everything around it. It was a spectacle that defied explanation, a phenomenon that hinted at forces beyond their understanding at play. The group stood in silence, their minds racing as they tried to comprehend the unfolding events. Something is trying to get through," Gustav voiced in realization. "But they can't, right? You said it yourself that they can't get out here." Eldris voiced in bafflement. "Yes, they shouldn't be able to, but..." Gustav's tone grew troubled. "The person on the other end is exerting a lot of power and preventing the rift from closing because they are trying to push their way through. It should be impossible to even stall it for a second, but this person must be very powerful. Talking power that could pretty much end galaxies with as little as a snort." Endrick voiced while gulping saliva. "It has to be Father," Falco voiced in horror. As the rifts around the ancient monolith vibrated with an unnatural frequency, the air around them began to tremble, heralding the onset of a catastrophic event. From the depths of the shimmering rifts, a dark mist emerged, creeping across the barren landscape like a living entity with a malevolent will of its own. It was no ordinary fog, but a harbinger of decay, an ethereal force that seemed to leach the essence of life and time from everything it touched. The desolate planet, already a stark canvas of desiccation, began to tremble under the influence of the otherworldly phenomenon. Cracks spread across the planet like spider webs, each fissure pulsing with the same eerie energy emanating from the rifts. The ground beneath their feet heaved, as if the planet itself was in its death throes, reacting to the invasive mist with violent convulsions. As the mist advanced, the surrounding rocks and remnants of once mighty structures began to change. They turned darker, their surfaces cracking and crumbling as if subjected to the relentless passage of millennia within moments. It was as though the mist carried the weight of untold ages within it, a force capable of condensing eons of decay and decline into mere seconds. Gustav, Falco, Endric, Ealdris, and Rhea watched in horror as the landscape around them was consumed by the relentless advance of darkness and time. "We can't stay here," Gustav stated, his voice barely audible over the groaning of the planet. Chapter 1482, on a cycle do not unlock, yet good luck, Endric tapped EE's shoulder twice before following after Gustav. "These two little fuckers," EE sighed. Gustav's fingertips emitted bluish beams as he drew rectangular lines in midair. A spatial doorway appeared, and he stepped in alongside Endric. They entered a space of Gustav's, making where an oddly shaped device was centered. Gustav tapped on a couple of buttons attached to the device, and it shot out rays of light that displayed a particular part of outer space. Within the display, a mixture of gray and white matter that seemed alive engulfed orbital bodies in the distance. Right before their very eyes, Gustav and Endric could see stars as large as the Milky Way sun, asteroids, and every other thing in sight get drawn into the gray and white matter. It cruised through space with its gigantic form and vanished not too long after. The device then went on to make a couple of analyses based on the properties of the gray and white matter. "I knew it," Gustav mumbled. "Knew what? What are we looking at here?" Endric inquired with a tone of curiosity. "Do you see this signature right here?" Gustav pointed at one of the displays that had a slash sign. "Yeah. That shows that whatever the warp demolator consumes doesn't necessarily get destroyed. Then what happens to them?" "It's a spatial sign that interprets that they get transported to an entirely different location from where they were in space." "What? That's insane." "I know, right? To be able to teleport orbital masses of that size. Incredible." At that point, Gustav began to put two and two together. "You're finally getting closer to the truth," the system voiced in his mind. "You have always shunned it whenever I mentioned the destruction of planet Humbad. Does this mean their planet just got swallowed up by the warp demolator and transferred elsewhere?" "You already arrived at the answer. Why still ask?" "Because a lot of details are still missing. The warp demolator appears randomly even though I can read its appearance now. How did the Slarkovs know that their planet was in danger of being swallowed up before it appeared? They must have left before the appearance of the warp demolator, which means they lied about their planet getting destroyed. What is the aim and objective here? I don't get it." Gustav rambled internally while staring at the device before him. "That's what the 5-year quest is for. Find Dimension 6 in planet Humbad, and the answers will be waiting for you," the system voiced. "That's where the problem lies. The warp demolator scanner has confirmed the spatial transportation, but where they were transported to..." Gustav stared at the readings before him. "What do all these mean?" Endric pointed at the bottom half of the readings. "That is where the warp demolator scanner says they were transported to," Gustav responded. "Reappearance determined. Stagnant Sidereus void, number 792. What is a stagnant Sidereus void?" Endric questioned, looking clueless. "Since there are orbital bodies, planets, stars, asteroids, moons, they can only be transported to some sort of galaxy. The only problem is this stagnant Sidereus void does not exist." Gustav had a conflicted expression after reaching the end of his statement. "How is that possible? Surely they can't be transported to somewhere that doesn't exist." Endric folded his arms while reeling forward in confusion. "It could be a pocket dimension," Endric added. "A pocket dimension can't hold so many orbital bodies like that. The laws of gravitational balance and space would not allow it. They would attract to each other, causing a collision that would wipe everything out of existence, the orbital bodies and dimensions included," Gustav explained. "What if the stagnant Sidereus is just a place that you don't know about?" "Maybe we just need to ask around," Endric suggested. I read every marked territory across the universe during our training in the MBO. I took the memories of the space pirate who has experienced journeying across galaxies for decades during our time out of Earth. I further broadened my knowledge, and I gained enlightenment about unsourced locations when my cosmic superiority forced me into a meeting with the other cosmic superior beings. Knowledge beyond alphas that are older than 1,000 years old. Trust me when I say, I've never heard of stagnant Citarus. Gustav iterated with such pompousness that Endrick fell speechless. Well, you are the outworldly after all, Endrick voiced with a casual shrug. So, what else have we not considered? He proceeded to inquire. */ this sign. Gustav pointed at a very odd sign close to the bottom area of the readings. I know what this one means. Premonition, Endrick stated. Yeah, but how is it related to all this? Gustav wondered out loud. Maybe the 5 premonitions? No, it is something else. Endrick swiftly corrected himself. Yeah, it is something else. Gustav shot a thoughtful gaze at the readings before coming to a decision. Let's be ready for when next the warp demolator appears. Gustav sauntered towards the right. Why, what are you planning? Endrick questioned, but soon his eyes widened in realization. Don't tell me the MBO tower. I don't understand this request of yours. Officer E. Commander Zanatus voiced with a look of confusion. The Death Angel that was captured. The research center is doing all they can to crack down on it and gather more information about the other side, right? Throughout this question, yes, indeed, that is true, Commander Zanatus replied. I am saying I can help. Remember, I was one of the few who had a personal encounter with them, voiced with a convincing tone. Did you suddenly figure something out? Commander Zanatus raised an eyebrow in intrigue. Yes, once I see it again in person. Sat up and took note of Commander Zanatus' pondering expression. You know that unauthorized personnel are not allowed to head there, right? I do. It is a top-secret location even amongst MBO officers. I know. A brief silence ensued between them as Commander Zanatus peered into EE's eyes with suspicion. Tell me the true reason you want to head there, Commander Zanatus demanded. There is no... It's for him, isn't it? A smile suddenly appeared on Commander Zanatus' face. How did he... He couldn't have figured it out, right? Gulped down saliva while maintaining eye contact with Commander Zanatus in a bid to decrease suspicion. I don't know what you're... Before could complete his sentence, Commander Zanatus cut him off. It's okay. I am an ally. I've always been. Did Gustav never tell you that we go way back? Commander Zanatus burst into a full-blown smile. East sat in place with a stunned look, unable to decide on what to say to deter the high-ranked officer before him. Commander Zanatus proceeded to pull out an image of him and Gustav receiving awards together, and a few other holographic pictures of the meeting. Be careful, though, if you had gone to another officer. Things could have gone really bad, he voiced. Yeah. Rubbed his head while letting out a sigh of relief. You're not very good at coming up with lies. You should learn from Gustav, Commander Zanatus pointed out. I'm not sure I want to learn that. Lightly stroked his afro with a bashful look. You should. Gustav is a master in the art of deceit. Commander Zanatus was chuckling. That is true. Hold on. Does this mean that you have been deceiving everyone like you were on their side with the allegations against Gustav all this time? Inquired. Of course, I could never truly be on their side. I owe that kid my life. Commander Zanatus bore a reminiscent look. I am secretly working behind the scenes to clear his name, but I will not bore you with the details. We all have our parts to play in this. It'll help you get into the underground research center. Commander Zanatus added while reaching out to shake EB. Thank you. Received the handshake with immense gratitude. Within the fiery depths of an active volcano, where molten lava bubbled and roiled with relentless fury, a figure sat amid red bubbling liquid. The air crackled with the searing heat of the molten rock, sending waves of intense heat radiating through the cavernous chamber. The figure exuded an aura of raw power, their presence commanding reverence that prevented the surroundings from having any effect on him. Molten lava flowed around him like a river of liquid fire. The figure got repeatedly bathed by the fiery liquid, and yet his skin radiated with smoothness. His eyes were closed, almost like he was meditating in the perilous environment. Dark smoke pervaded the vicinity, which didn't bother him in the slightest. After what seemed like ages, he suddenly opened his eyes. "I told you, I don't want to be bothered until he returns." Chapter 1483 DNA. Chapter 1483 DN. A author's note. Do not unlock yet, rival. Rhea yelled once more and lunged forward in joy. Gustav raised his right hand to block Rhea's face with a wry smile. "Calm your excitement." Eldris chuckled from behind as he stood to his feet. "Don't be so harsh." "He missed you," he stated. "Everyone did." Eldris added with a reminiscent look. "How did you guys know I was on Earth?" Gustav questioned with a slightly suspicious tone. "Why did you think EE would keep it from us?" Eldris threw out the question, causing Gustav to shake his head slightly. It was supposed to be a quick pop in and out of Earth, and yet so many unexpected things happened. Gustav let out a small sigh. "So, that was you facing the clone." "I suspected." Eldris smiled while extending a fist. "What clone?" Rhea scratched his head cluelessly. "Yeah, it was me," Gustav replied while bumping Eldris' fist softly. "That was just one out of the many things I faced since I arrived here. I still had to stop a mad scientist from getting rid of everyone's bloodline, fight Jack, and mess with that MBO sign." Gustav couldn't believe just how crazy the last 2 weeks had gone. "You fought Jack Sherwin? You were the one who messed with that MBO sign?" Eldris and Rhea voiced simultaneously in disbelief. Not by choice, but yet. Also, in a different timeline, Gustav took a seat and slumped back against the sofa. "Who won?" Rhea kicked his feet up excitedly while inquiring. "Who do you think?" Gustav voiced in response. "Well, seeing as you were here now." Eldris couldn't even complete his sentence because he knew that would technically be saying Gustav was the most powerful on Earth. He knew it was possible in due time, but couldn't fathom Gustav already reaching that level at 21 years old. "Rival, you won." Rhea's eyes widened in astonishment. "No, it was barely a stalemate. I probably would be dead by now if he used full strength from the start," Gustav bluntly pointed out. "Oh," both Eldris and Rhea voiced together. "Anyways, at least I got to gauge his strength and understand what level I need to acquire before I can be on equal footing with him." Gustav strangely seemed glad about the encounter. "The fact that you can even contend with him in the slightest is commendable." Eldris patted Gustav's shoulder twice. "I only have a year more to not just be able to contend with him, but reach a higher level of power, or I fail the quest," Gustav reminded himself internally. "So how did you get away from him?" Rhea questioned. "I didn't. He had to leave to face that half-white and black unknown entity," Gustav responded. "What half-white and black entity?" Rhea was extremely dumbfounded. "Were you living under a rock? You're a part of the MBO. You should know." Gustav felt that Rhea seemed too uninformed on some of the matters that he should be aware of. Technically, he was living under a volcano. Eldris chimed in from the side, causing Rhea to smile wryly. Gustav was further confused by the revelation. "Did you quit the MBO?" "No, I took a leave," Rhea answered while rotating his right arm. "He said he didn't want to be disturbed until you return." Eldris chuckled while revealing. "Hey, he didn't have to know that." Rhea yelled bashfully. "He didn't stop channeling his bloodline in the active volcano until I informed him of your return Eldris added while Rhea pouted at the side. He is a lot more powerful now. I can sense it, Gustav voiced in observation. Rhea's eyes widened in excitement. Really? Gustav nodded. From what I can sense, your energy is higher than Eldris. Well, family issues haven't exactly made me active this last year. I also took a leave from the MBO, Eldris revealed. Tell me all about it. Gustav showed a concerned expression. Nah, it's nothing to be bothered about. Eldris waved it off. But I did hear of that being. It is suspected to come from the same place as the Death Angels. Eldris couldn't help but sense an ominous feeling while mentioning it. If I was skeptical about that before, I am 100% certain now. Gustav then mentioned how the black and white entity broke the Death Angel out the last time. But how can it easily travel between worlds? Didn't you mention that the Death Angels were only able to do that because of that premonition thing that happened on planet Osius? Eldris asked, sounding conflicted. That's the mystery. If I hadn't reversed time, the Death Angel would be truly free by now. Gustav held his chin in bafflement. Wait, you can reverse time now? Rhea's jaw dropped. I can do a lot of things now. Gustav voiced like it wasn't a big deal, but even Eldris was amazed. Damn, just how powerful are you now? Rhea questioned. Not powerful enough, Gustav replied. You weren't really planning on rescuing Falco and Angie all by yourself, right? Rhea asked while folding his arms. I didn't want to get you guys involved. It would be too dangerous. Gustav shook his head. That's why Eat informed us behind your back. You need all the help you can get if you intend to infiltrate that other dimension, Eldris pointed out. No, only I and Endrick will be heading there after we've gathered all the items we need. Gustav immediately refused. You can't stop us from coming with. Falco and Angie are our friends too. Do you know how long I've been waiting to do something about their rescue? Now that the opportunity has presented itself, I want it back. Rhea voiced with a fired-up expression. They both stared at the look on Gustav's face, hoping for some type of reaction. After a brief silence, Gustav stood to his feet. No. Gustav Crimson is on Earth. I can feel it. Within an office, situated in an MBO base, a high-ranking female officer roamed the place with a conflicted expression. She had a long, green ponytail while the rest of her hair was sky blue. Her face had cat-like features with whiskers, but overall, her body was humanoid in structure. For how long have you been feeling this way, ma'am? An MBO major questioned from the other end. A little over 2 weeks now. She replied, Could you perhaps be referring to the clone? The 5-foot-tall major with a blue, slimy face questioned. No, I am very much aware of the clone. I am talking about the real deal. He is here. She kept prancing about the place with a look of conflict eye on. I don't know, ma'am. The MBO major was clueless. Think, Gohan. Think what anomaly has occurred during that time frame, she questioned, causing pressure to descend upon the surroundings. Except for the clone, I can't really think of anything else, ma'am. Gohan shook his head. I said think. She yelled with a horrifying tone, causing Gohan to tremble in place. I think there's... Gohan kept stuttering in uncertainty. Oh, just spit it out, she stated with a tone of annoyance. I just recall that there was a mention of Jack's encounter with the person who faced the clone. He said in another timeline, the Earth was in trouble because of the appearance of that black and white entity. Time was rewound, but he remembered that it happened because of his strength. Gohan tooted on. He left the clone in the hands of the person who took it on and returned to the research facility. Ma'am Reina, he said the person informed him. Gohan paused to see if she was starting to see the pattern. That person who faced the clone. Did we ever figure out his identity? General Reina questioned rhetorically. Gohan shook his head in response. But a person powerful enough to reverse time on a scale where even Jack would be affected must at least be an alpha ranked, or maybe even higher. The number of mixed bloods on that level of power is around 200 in the entire populace of billions. We have records for them and know the names of each and every one of them. None of them has this ability. When Gohan got to this point, General Reina's eyes widened. Since this isn't a recorded alpha, it means that this person must have become an alpha after the last one was recorded, which was years ago. If they were on Earth when it happened or weren't in hiding, then it would be a part of the public records, but because they were in hiding. General Reina came to a pause as a sense of realization hit her. Get latest Oval-CHers on Envelbchen. C/M, the person who faced the clone was the real Gustav in disguise, Gohan stated with a tone of certainty. Now we just need proof. General Reina stopped prancing at this moment. Where would someone like Gustav Crimson hide out? Chapter 1484 Dwell and Learn. Chapter 1484 Dwell and Learn author's note. Unedited chapter Gustav responded by initiating a projection that filled the room with data, a visual symphony of numbers, symbols, and cryptic words, interspersed with images showing an ashy trail streaking across space. The key to finding Humbad lies in deciphering this, Gustav explained, his finger tracing the lines of data as they floated holographically in midair. He paused at two recurring terms that seemed to anchor the chaos of information: stagnant, siderous void, and premonition. Gustav continued, the stagnant siderous void is where I believe planet Humbad is. The problem is that, according to what I know, it also is a place that doesn't exist in any known location within the universe. So what are the premonition? Are they linked with the 5 premonitions? Aeldris inquired. I don't think so. I think this premonition represents something else. Representation for the location or key to accessing the stagnant, siderous void. Meanwhile, back on Earth, in a facility orbiting high above the planet's surface, a different scene unfolded. A floating prison, specifically designed for holding aliens, was a marvel of modern technology. Its exterior was a composite of dark metals and energy fields, rotating slowly with the Earth's orbit, its presence a silent sentinel in the cold vacuum of space. Inside, the environment was starkly minimalist, functional to its core. The cells were designed not with bars, but with energy fields humming with a low, almost imperceptible buzz. At the center of one such cell floated a being, its form nebulous and shifting, contained by the force of the high-tech restraints. Elevra stood outside the energy field, her figure bathed in the soft blue light that emanated from the cell's containment system. Her hair fluttered as her commanding presence contrasted sharply with the dim, utilitarian surroundings. Who is the leader of the Gustavo Alliance, and where is their base located? Elevra asked, her voice firm and devoid of any warmth. It was a question she had posed several times, each iteration as pointed as the last. The being inside the cell, its form coalescing into a more humanoid appearance, replied with a tone that was both weary and defiant. The answer remains the same as it has. It's Gustav. He leads and they follow. Elevra's eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of irritation passing over her features. I know that Gustav has nothing to do with this. Tell me the truth. Who pulls the strings? She countered smoothly. The seal was so strong, so impenetrable, that not even the might of the ancient executioners could break it on their own. My birth, my very existence, was the key to creating the first breach. Rhea, always quick to grasp the implications, leaned forward. So, your existence alone weakened the seal? But how does that relate to the premonitions we've been encountering? Falco sighed, the weight of his destiny apparent in his posture. The premonitions, they are not random cosmic events. They are rituals, each carefully planned and executed to weaken the seal further. And when the 5th premonition appears, the seal will be completely destroyed. Aeldris, who was starting to understand the situation, interjected, You're saying that the appearances of these ancient executioners' body parts during the premonitions are sacrifices? Falco nodded grimly. Exactly. Each part of the executioners that manifests and is then sacrificed contributes to the weakening of the seal. Those are body parts that will be lost to them forever, but that is a testament to the seal's strength, considering that the ancient executioners are among the second most powerful beings within my father's realm. The silence within the spacecraft was palpable, but it only lasted for a few seconds as Falco cut through the silence with the remaining part of his tail. So much so that they haven't been conscious in hundreds of thousands of years because they serve only one purpose. The revelation stirred a mix of horror and fascination among the crew. The notion that such powerful entities were being used as mere tools in a larger scheme was unsettling. Rhea, trying to understand the broader implications, asked, "What happens if the seal is broken completely? What does your father hope to achieve?" Falco looked at each of them, his gaze lingering as if measuring the impact of his next words. "If the seal breaks, it will release something bound since the dawn of this universe's memory. Something my father believes should not have been sealed away, or should I say someone?" He turned to face Gustav. "Someone you specifically sealed away." "What? Gustav? How could Gustav have sealed someone away from so long ago?" Rhea and Eldris voiced out their confusion. "Because he was there. He is the outworldly. I finally understand what the outworldly is, what the title entails. Gustav, do you even know who you are?" "I can take a wild guess from everything you've mentioned, but even I don't believe it myself." Gustav shook his head slightly. "He is telling the truth, though. That is why you play a key part in stopping this," Endrick voiced from the side. "So, what exactly happens when the seal is gone?" Rhea questioned again. "The Overseer will return. All beings of the higher planes will have a foothold in ours again, and believe me, it isn't a sight you want to live to see." Falco shook his head. "Then we must make sure the final premonition doesn't happen. We can't allow this seal to break." Gustav responded. Falco's expression softened, appreciating Gustav's resolve. "I thought you might say that, and am with you. While I was born to facilitate my father's plans, my journey with you all, it has shown me a different path, one that I choose to follow, standing against the darkness my father seeks to unleash." Eldris, moved by Falco's declaration, placed a supportive hand on his shoulder. "Then it's settled. We'll stand together, as we always have. And Falco, we're not just fighting beside you out of duty, but out of belief in you, in the choice you've made to defy what was written for you." The group's resolve hardened, fortified by the bonds they had formed through countless battles and shared burdens. "But how do we do that? We couldn't stop the premonitions before. How are we going to stop them now?" Rhea's question broke the silence. "Well, come up with something." "I need to complete 2 quests first," Gustav responded while a system panel appeared before him. "Quests, duration, progress 59/100%. Time elapsed less than 4 years. Duration, progress 94/100%. Time elapsed less than 4 years. I wonder how the system calculates the difference between power." Gustav thought about how he could use Cohelia to swallow anything up, and how he also had cosmic superiority as another leverage over anyone, no matter how powerful. Remembering his special abilities made him wonder the aspect of strength the system calculated. "What does it matter? You've made much progress." The system chipped in. "Whatever, from the looks of things, I would probably be able to close in that 6% in less than a year's time. The real issue is Dimension 6 in Planet Humbad," Gustav thought internally with a look of perplexity. "We have to find Planet Humbad," Gustav announced. The statement dropped like a meteor in the midst of the group, eliciting a mix of shock and confusion. Rhea, as always, was the first to respond. "Gustav, Planet Humbad was destroyed thousands of years ago. How are we supposed to find something that doesn't exist?" Eldris and Falco were just as confused, except Endrick, whose expression remained unfazed. "That's where you're wrong," Endrick interjected, his voice steady and sure. "The destruction of Humbad is a widely accepted fact, but it's a facade, a cover-up for much deeper truths hidden by the Slarkovs themselves." Gustav nodded at Endrick's clarification, appreciating the support. "Exactly. And within Humbad, in what is known as Dimension 6, lies something crucial for handling our current predicament with the seal. We must locate it." The revelation that Humbad still existed, possibly holding the keys to the answers they desperately needed, was beyond their comprehension. The story of Planet Humbad was one that had been told since forever to the masses on Earth. They had grown up with it, and so had their fathers and their fathers' fathers. It was hard to swallow that it had been a generational lie, but it slowly began to sink in. But what about Angie? She's still trapped within the Dark Plane. Do we give up on rescuing her? Rhea questioned with a mix of worry and frustration. "I haven't forgotten about Angie. I more than anyone want to rescue her. But consider this, if they've kept her alive all this time, they must still need her. That means she's relatively safe for now. Our main focus must shift to finding Humbad. It might be our best chance to save her. And everyone else." Falco, absorbing the strategy laid out by Gustav, added his perspective. "Gustav is right. Angie has some kind of usefulness to my father, and that is more so now than ever since he can't control me. If Gustav says finding Humbad could help us, then I trust his judgment." Eldris chimed in at that moment. "The question remains, how do we find a planet that seemed to have vanished from existence? Where do we even begin?" Chapter 1485. It is epic. Chapter 1485. It is epic author's note. Unedited chapter. Gustav's confusion deepened into concern. "In my name? That's absurd. I have no connection to this so-called alliance. Right now, we are deep into deciphering data related to finding Planet Humbad. We have enough on our plate." E nodded, understanding the complexity of Gustav's predicament. "I get it, man, but you need to know, your reputation is taking a hit. Every planet they take over in your name makes it worse. The Intergalactic Alliance will have more of a reason to condemn you." Gustav leaned back, rubbing his temples in frustration. "That's a reputation he'll have to endure for now," he said resignedly. "Until we resolve the current situation, maybe you could consider going after them," E suggested. "Sigh, I don't know. We really don't have much time left," Gustav answered. The transmission continued, the weight of the universe's eyes on them growing heavier by the moment. E shifted his attention to Falco, who had been quiet in the background. "And Falco," E added, his tone softening, "your earthly father misses you. Any plans of coming to say hi soon?" E seemed to have already been briefed on everything that transpired, as he spoke with a knowing tone. "I miss him too, but," Falco replied, his voice tinged with a mix of nostalgia and determination. "This takes priority at the moment. Maybe you could help me send a message. Tell him I'm fine," he added. E smiled slightly, a brief respite from the dire news he had delivered. "I will. Stay safe. All of you. I will try my best to stabilize things over here." The holographic image flickered as the transmission prepared to end. "Keep us updated, E. Gustav said firmly. E nodded before the transmission ended. After the transmission ended, Gustav went back to facing the display of data relating to the warp demolator and stagnant Siderus void. Endrick turned to Gustav with a look of earnest inquiry. "You've been poring over this data in the last few days. What have you uncovered? Any insights that could help us navigate to Humbad?" The rest leaned in, anticipation hanging palpable in the air. They all respected Gustav's intellect, which had proven on countless occasions to be second to none. His ability to discern patterns and meanings where others saw only chaos was almost legendary. Gustav, who had been staring intently at the holographic symbols and equations, finally turned to face them. His expression was one of cautious intrigue, hinting at the depth of his discoveries. "I have a multitude of theories," he began slowly, his voice measured, "but there is one that resonates the most, is perhaps the most radical." The crew shifted. Their interest peaked as they prepared to delve into one of Gustav's quintessential revelations. Gustav continued, "Remember I mentioned that the stagnant siderous void is not any known place within the universe. But what if it doesn't exist yet?" A murmur of surprise and skepticism ran through the group, with Falco furrowing his brows in confusion. "Doesn't exist yet? How?" Gustav replied by pointing back to the display, where the symbol for premonition floated next to the term stagnant siderous void. "We've been interpreting premonition as a warning or a vision of impending events. But what if in this context it doesn't just mean foresight? What if it's actually a clue indicating the future?" Eldris, trying to keep up, chimed in. "Are you saying that the stagnant siderous void is a place that doesn't exist yet but will exist in the future?" Author's note: check out my new novel, Evo's Legacy. Rise of the Strongest System Bearer. Everything that happens is the will of our Lord God Gustav. Don't be a misguided sapien. Join the cause of our Lord, the being voiced once more like a fanatic. If you spit one more bullshit again, I will obliterate you, Elevra threatened. The being's form shimmered, its fear palpable even through the containment field. "You think you are powerful, but your abilities are nothing but mere flickers of shadows compared to our God Gustav, the shield behind which the true powers convene." Elevra stepped closer to the field, her presence imposing. "Your cooperation is your only path to lesser confinement. Help us, and we can help you. Who is behind this?" "Our Lord Gustav." The being sounded like a brainwashed fanatic. Elevra fixed her intense gaze upon the nebulous form of the imprisoned being. "This is getting repetitive. Tell me the truth. Who is behind the Gustavo Alliance?" she demanded, her voice echoing slightly off the smooth walls, imbued with an authority that brooked no defiance. The being inside the cell, its form shimmering with a yellow light, replied with a fervor that bordered on fanaticism. "Gustav is our God, our personal savior. There is no behind, for he is the forefront, the guiding light of our mission." Elevra's eyes narrowed, her patience wearing thin. "Spare me your zealotry. I need names, structures. Who orchestrates the moves? Does Gustav even know of the existence of you lots?" The being seemed to curl within itself, a flicker of hesitation passing through its ethereal form. "You seek shadows in a well-lit room. Gustav is the epitome, the culmination of our faith and actions. We are his to command, his to deploy as he sees fit on the chessboard of this universe." Unsatisfied with the circular answers, Elevra shifted tactics. "Then tell me about your aims for attacking Earth. What was the objective?" "We were to bring Earth under our dominion, as we have done with other planets." The being responded, its voice a mixture of pride and regret. "But we underestimated Earth's strength. Our unit thought ourselves too mighty, even though we were warned. It matters not. Where we have failed, others will succeed. They shall carry out the grand design." Elevra pressed on, her tone sharpening like a blade. "And what is this grand design? What is the end game of your so-called Gustavo Alliance?" The room tensed as the being paused, its brightness dimming, as if drawing in energy for a significant revelation. "The end game," it began, its voice now a hollow echo of its former vigor, "is to support our Lord and Savior Gustav in his ultimate mission to bring an end to the existence of the universe." The words hung heavy in the air, charged with the magnitude of their implications. Elevra felt a chill run down her spine as Gustav's face flashed in her mind. "To end the universe," she repeated, disbelief threading through her words. Gustav would never do that. These fools must have higher-ups that pursue such a goal. Such madness. Elevra spat. It is not madness but enlightenment, the being insisted. To end is to begin anew. Our Lord Gustav sees the flaws in the fabric of reality, the errors in the Cosmos Code. He wishes to reset it, to create something purer, free from the chaos that currently defines it. Doesn't sound like him at all, so now I'm assured that these fools are acting on their own. I need to tell Elevra's mind pieced together the information with makeshift scenarios. You speak of apocalypse as if it's a renewal, she countered sharply. That's destruction on an unimaginable scale. Lives, planets, entire galaxies. Erased? For what? A chance for your little group to play God? She knew Gustav wasn't responsible for what they had in mind, but she was nonetheless bothered because they obviously had plans to set in motion. What are beings but brief sparks in the eternal darkness? Gustav offers a return to the singularity from whence all arose, a noble sacrifice, a return to purity. Elevra felt a surge of anger and helplessness, her fists clenching at her sides. This was no mere terrorist organization or a tyrannical regime seeking dominion. They were dealing with a cult with existential destruction as their creed. You're delusional, but your beliefs are your own, Elevra finally said, her voice cold as the void outside. But know this, when the real Gustav eventually set his sights on you fools, everything will come to an end. Pray you don't make a stupid decision before then, because erasure would be the least of your concerns. With those final words, Elevra turned sharply on her heel and exited the containment area. Her steps were measured, but inside, her thoughts were a maelstrom. The silence of space was absolute, broken only by the muffled sound of the spacecraft's engines and the soft beeps of its operating systems that only echoed within an enclosed bubble. Gustav and the others gathered around the control room before a console. A holographic display casted a blue glow across their faces as an intergalactic transmission with EE seemed to be playing out. Gustav, we've just repelled another attack by the Gustavo Alliance. They're becoming increasingly troublesome, he voiced with a disturbed tone. Gustav brow furrowed in confusion as he responded. The Gustavo Alliance? I've never even come across a single one of them, but I've heard of some weird groups using my name. EE sighed, his face weary from the burdens of what transpired on Earth. Do you know they've also been conquering planets in your name? They're spreading the belief across the universe that you are their leader, their so-called God. Chapter 1486, The Deed. Chapter 1486, The Deed, Author's Note. Unedited chapter dam. Maybe I should have used that one. EE nearly face-palmed. I still do not understand what you're talking about, General. Why is the girl a problem exactly? She isn't who you came here to find. EE decided to stop mentioning relatives or any other excuse, and outright played coy. True, she isn't the one I am looking for. General Reyna arrived before E once more and stared into his eyes briefly. But maybe she has connections to him. Immediately after adding, she turned to the side and started walking towards Cersei. You don't mind if I ask her a few questions, do you? General Reyna emitted an intimidating presence while approaching, without a warrant or anything that advocates a crime. Isn't that against her rights? E voiced with a tone that slightly hinted at trepidation. Just a few friendly, simple questions. Nothing much, unless there is something to hide. General Reyna turned slightly to shoot E a glance. Ha ha, knock yourself out, General. E laughed wryly. I don't like where this is going. E screamed internally. General Reyna proceeded to bring out a holographic tab which displayed a picture of Gustav. Have you seen this person before? She questioned with a keen gaze. Bang, bang, boom. Powerful ripples spread across the air. due to an ongoing battle between a trio. Fwish after images could be spotted in the skies as they engaged one another powerfully. Blasts often rang out, and despite being distant from the surface, the icy terrain would occasionally split and shatter from the residual energy. No normal person could witness the ongoing battle due to their unparalleled speed as they bolted across the skies. However, on closer look, it was a 2-versus-1 battle. The figure in the middle was continuously deflecting blows from the other two, and appeared to be doing it rather easily. One of the two had his arms covered in rocks, as he repeatedly threw fierce jabs at the figure in the middle. Bang, bang, bang. The figure in between swayed his hands causally, slapping the fists away before they made contact. His arms looked like they were moving 1,000,000 times in just 1 second. Bang. He slapped the one covered in rocks away, sending him hurling across the air. Bam, bam, bam. He slammed into the icy surface below, sliding across it and forming wide crevices due to the force of the attack. Meanwhile, the other one, whose attack had also been repeatedly getting deflected, now had to face the figure with dark hair alone. "Thanks for doing this, Sir Jack," he voiced in gratitude before opening his eyes. "Not a problem. I was starting to get bored here anyways," Jack responded with a smile as he stared at the multiple twinkling colors in the eyes of the 75 youngster with silver hair before him. Jack's smile suddenly vanished the moment the world before him lost all color. He felt the space around him bending and contrasting in a very eerie manner, while the youngster across from him was the only being with color. "Impressive." Jack's smile returned as he praised. "Not impressive enough if you're still smiling." Aeldris' silver hair floated as he raised his index finger, which had a swirling mass of numerous colors above it. Waving it forward slightly, the swirling mass sped towards Jack, who responded by thrusting a palm forward. Fwoosh, a star-patterned construct materialized into existence, fighting against the colorless domain as it flickered occasionally with colors, like a switch turning off and on. The construct collided with the swirling mass of multiple colors, causing a mass of blackness to form upon merging. "Thank you." Aeldris smiled while spreading his palms apart. "Pah!" The moment he clasped his hands together, an incredibly immense suction force was generated from the dark mass. With such powerful suction force, even the earth should have been swallowed up in an instant. However, this suction force only seemed to affect Jack, who found himself unable to fight against it. "This is ridiculous," he voiced internally as the black swirling mass pulled him into its center and formed restraints that held him in place. "Now," Aeldris yelled. Boom. A loud explosion rang out from underneath as the icy terrain ruptured, and a figure sped upwards with such immense force that it tore a line across the sky. A tempest accompanied by a flaming mountain of ice and volcanic magma trailed across the air with unbridled intensity. Behind it was Rhea, who stomped onto the bottom, sending it spiraling at the restrained Jack. Boom. A deafening collision reverberated across the vicinity, bringing with it harsh winds that blew everything away, Rhea and Aeldris included. Shock waves spread across the air, turning miles of the icy terrain beneath to water. Everyone within a 500-mile radius could feel the earth quaking intensely, like it was about to give way. The battle was being fought in the sky, and yet it had greatly affected the surface beneath. "Did we get him?" Rhea voiced from below. "Being the strongest mixed blood in existence, you know the answer to that." Aeldris smiled wryly. Not long after, Jack appeared in the distance where the skies were completely void of clouds. The last blast had blown them all away. He floated in place, practically unscathed except for a few cuts on his clothes. TCH, why is he so overpowered? Rhea felt like all his months of seclusion had been thrown down the drain. "Haha, come on, Rhea. Even Gustav would be unable to win," Aeldris reminded him from the side. "But he's not even injured." "I trained for so long and am still so weak," Rhea voiced with a tone of defeat. Jack's figure suddenly vanished, reappearing before Rhea in the next instant. "You're not weak." Jack raised his palm to show Rhea that it was scalded. "You're just up against me. Some alphas would be unable to cause me even the tiniest bit of damage. So don't sell yourself short." Jack patted Rhea's shoulder. "Really?" Rhea's face suddenly lit up in excitement. "Of course. IDs say you're powerful enough to contend with a bet-ranked mixed blood, and being that powerful at such a young age means that you will be stronger than me when you're my age." Jack smiled while floating upwards. "It'll give you 2 an A for effort. At least you made me use a pretty high level of strength to not only get out of that restraint, but also block your attack." Jack turned around to fly away after revealing. "Thank you," Rhea yelled, but he was already gone. Praise from the world's strongest. "Today is not a bad day." Aeldris descended while speaking. "How did you do that trap thing?" Rhea questioned with a hint of curiosity. "Oh, that. I just bound his energy to my attack and used it to lure his essence and merge him into it. No one should be able to get out of that restraint so long as they attack it instead of evading," Aeldris explained. "But he got out of it," Rhea said with a tone of confoundment. "He is Jack Sherwin." Within EBS apartment, General Reyna stared down at Cersei, who kept answering all her questions with no. "So you've never seen Gustav Crimson before? You don't know who he is, and you have no connection to him?" General Reyna voiced, with her tone rising every second. Cersei shook her head in response. "General, you said this was going to be friendly and brief. Would you please stop harassing the poor girl?" He voiced from the side with a tone of annoyance. General Reyna wore a smile and stood upright before turning around. "I have checked. There is nothing," Gohan voiced from the side. "No records, no birth certificate, no database whatsoever on this young girl. It's like she just appeared out of thin air," he added. "How intriguing. Coming into existence around the same period Gustav Crimson is suspected to be on Earth. What an interesting coincidence indeed." General Reyna gazed at EE briefly to note his reaction. EE was quiet, seemingly racking his brain on how to respond to her. "Since someone that doesn't exist is currently in here, I guess it wouldn't be what I do to her now, would it?" General Reyna suddenly reached out at that moment to grab Cersei. "General Reyna, what are you doing?" EE yelled while strutting forward, but before he could get close, Gohan threw a glowing icy cube towards the floor before him. Thring, a triangular barrier of light, suddenly surrounded EE, trapping him in place. "You use spatial abilities, right? That will keep you from interfering for a while." General Reyna smiled while watching EE bang the walls of the barrier constantly. He tried to conjure a vortex, but to no avail. General Reyna drove a fist into Sarah's belly at that moment, causing her to spit out a mouthful of blood. "Cersei, let her go. You witch!" He voiced out in anguish. "Just stay in there and don't interfere." General Reyna turned to face Cersei once more before raising her. "I'm only dealing with someone who shouldn't exist." Immediately after saying that, she threw another punch forward. "Enough." Chapter 1487 Longer Maintenance. Chapter 1487 Longer Maintenance Author's Note. Unedited chapter, it was an intricate dance, each aspect needing to fall into perfect harmony with the others. Gustav visualized a triangle, each point representing one of the 3 elements. They needed to converge at the center, creating a unified force. The yellow shade of Gustav's body deepened to a low shade of gold. He felt himself drawing closer to the goal, the connection between his soul, mind, and body growing stronger. Every fiber of his being thrummed with energy, a resonance that felt both alien and deeply familiar. It was as if he were reaching out to touch the fabric of the universe itself. Stark watched with a mixture of awe and frustration. His own attempts at the transformation had yielded no results, and he could only admire Gustav's tenacity and progress. You're almost there, Stark murmured, more to himself than to Gustav. After what felt like an eternity but was only a few hours, Gustav entered a peak focus state. His breathing slowed, his heart rate dropped, and his mind cleared of all distractions. In this heightened state, the alignment he sought finally clicked into place. It was like the chime of a bell, clear and pure, resonating through his very being. Suddenly, Gustav's body transformed. His skin turned a radiant gold, glowing with an otherworldly light. He felt an unfathomable and indescribable connection to realms beyond human understanding. It was as if he were one with the cosmos, able to perceive and interact with the very essence of existence. For that brief moment, everything made sense. Gustav's awareness expanded, touching upon the infinite possibilities and knowledge that lay beyond the mortal plane. He felt invincible, omnipotent, and yet profoundly at peace. It was a state of perfect unity, the culmination of his efforts and determination. Is this? It feels like I have transcended mortality. Gustav had never felt anything like this before, but the moment was fleeting. No sooner had he achieved this transcendence than it began to slip away. Gustav felt a wave of immense fatigue wash over him, his golden form flickering before reverting to its original state. He gasped, his body trembling with exhaustion. The transformation had drained him, leaving him weakened. "It's gone," Gustav muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. Stark stepped forward, concern etched on his face. "Are you okay? You looked like you were there, just for a second." "I was," Gustav replied, his voice strained. "But I couldn't hold on to it." Stark placed a hand on Gustav's shoulder. "You've practically done it. You've made more progress than I have. Just rest for a bit and try again." Gustav nodded, taking deep breaths to steady himself. He couldn't give up now, not when he had come so far. The brief taste of the three-in-one golden body had only fueled his determination. He needed to achieve that state again, to master it. He closed his eyes and resumed his meditation, focusing on the alignment of his soul, mind, and body. Hours passed as he cycled through moments of near transformation and intense fatigue. Each attempt brought him closer, but maintaining the golden state eluded him. He visualized the triangle, the convergence point, the harmony he needed to achieve. Stark watched, his own frustrations momentarily forgotten as he saw Gustav's determination. He knew that if anyone could achieve and master this transformation, it was Gustav. Another hour passed, and Gustav felt the familiar resonance building within him. His body began to glow again, the yellow deepening to gold. He focused all his willpower on maintaining the alignment, on keeping his soul, mind, and body in perfect harmony. For a brief moment, he achieved the transformation again. His body shone with a radiant gold, the connection to the cosmos once more within his grasp. But the strain was immense, the energy required to maintain the state overwhelming. Gustav felt himself slipping, the golden glow fading as exhaustion took hold. Achieving it seems to be more easier than holding on to it. His voice was a mere whisper as he slumped to the ground. Stark knelt beside him, offering support. "You're doing great, Gustav. Just rest for a bit and try again." Gustav nodded, too tired to speak. After some time, Gustav took a deep breath, gathering his strength. "I need to find a way to channel the energy more efficiently. The trials, they were about testing my limits, pushing me to adapt. I need to use that adaptability to sustain the transformation." Stark nodded, understanding dawning. "You think you can do it?" "I have to try," Gustav replied, determination hardening his features. With renewed focus, Gustav resumed his meditation. He visualized the energy flowing through him, seeking ways to channel it more effectively. He remembered the strain of the trials, the need to adapt and overcome. Slowly, he began to adjust his approach, finding a rhythm that felt more sustainable. The yellow glow returned, deepening to gold. Gustav felt the alignment once more the connection to the cosmos within his reach. However, no matter how much he tried, maintaining the three in one golden body seemed like an impossible task. Gustav sat on the cold, stone floor of the temple, his body trembling with fatigue, but his spirit unbroken. Suddenly, a familiar glow filled the room, and Miss Amy's projection appeared before them. Her long, grayish hair flowed like a river, and her eyes sparkled with a mixture of pride and warmth. "Well done, Gustav," Miss Amy said, her voice gentle yet powerful. "You have made remarkable progress." Gustav looked up with a face full of fatigue. "Miss Amy, I managed to achieve it, but I can't seem to maintain it for more than a second." Miss Amy nodded, her expression understanding. The three in one golden body is not something that can be easily attained or maintained. Even achieving it for a few milliseconds is a tremendous feat. It takes an incredible amount of energy and focus. But how can it be useful if I can't hold it for longer? Gustav asked, his frustration evident. "The fact that you can activate it at all is a testament to your strength and potential," Miss Amy explained. "You are a cosmic superior being, Gustav. This is why you were able to achieve it within a couple of weeks. For anyone else, it would take years of dedicated training." Stark, who had been silently listening, let out a sigh of relief and frustration. "So, it's not something I can achieve anytime soon." Miss Amy turned her gaze to Stark, her eyes softening. "Your efforts are commendable, but this training was originally built for Gustav to participate in alone. I don't think anyone else will be able to match his pace." Stark nodded, accepting her words. "All right, I understand." Gustav still looked troubled. "But how do I improve on maintaining it for longer?" Miss Amy smiled gently. "You must continue to activate it as many times as possible. The more you use it, the longer you will be able to sustain the transformation. It will take time, but with your determination, I have no doubt you will get it." Gustav took a deep breath. "Thank you, Miss Amy. I'll keep working on it." For the next few hours, Gustav resumed his meditation, focusing on the alignment of his soul, mind, and body. Each attempt brought him closer to maintaining the golden state for longer periods. The brief moments of success fueled his determination. Even as the strain of the process took its toll, Gustav's focus intensified with each session, and the intervals of golden transformation grew longer. The process was grueling, but he could feel himself getting more in tune with the cosmic energy that flowed through him. He wanted to test it out to see the capabilities of the golden body, but he still needed it to be maintained for longer first. As the days passed, Gustav began to notice subtle changes in his perception. The alignment of his soul, mind, and body felt more natural, as if they were becoming a single entity. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue across the temple, Gustav felt a surge of clarity. He sat cross-legged, his breathing steady and his mind calm. He visualized the triangle once more, each point representing an essential aspect of his being. With a deep breath, he focused on the convergence point, the moment of unity that would trigger the transformation. The yellow glow began to spread across his body, deepening into a rich shade of gold. Gustav concentrated on maintaining the flow of energy, adjusting and adapting as needed. For over 2 minutes, he held the golden state, his body radiating with an otherworldly light. The connection was strong, the alignment stable. He could feel the potential within him, the power that came with the three in one golden body. Stark watched in awe, sensing that Gustav had finally found the key to maintaining the transformation for longer. He remained silent, not wanting to disrupt the moment. As the golden glow persisted, Gustav felt a profound sense of peace and empowerment. He could perceive orbital bodies in space as his mind merged with constellations and stars like he was a part of them. "It almost feels like I can be everywhere at once." What is this power? Gustav felt like taking it further and letting himself go. Chapter 1488 Power of the Golden Body. Chapter 1488 Power of the Golden Body. Author's note. Unedited chapter. Gustav's perception expanded, his mind traveling across the vast expanse of space. He could see stars and galaxies, their light twinkling like distant beacons. He felt the pull of distant worlds, each one a point of interest in the endless cosmos. His further pushed the spread of his being. Then his mind focused on a familiar sight. The blue and green orb of Earth floated before him, its beauty magnified by his enhanced senses. Gustav's heart swelled with a mix of awe and nostalgia. He could see the continents, the oceans, and the swirling clouds that blanketed the planet. It was a sight that filled him with both pride and longing. "I can see Earth from here," Gustav whispered to himself, astonished by the clarity and detail of his vision. But he wasn't content to merely observe. He wanted to feel the earth beneath his feet, to walk its lands once more. With a determined thought, he extended his astral form towards the planet, his consciousness traveling at a speed that defied comprehension. In an instant, he found himself hovering above Earth's surface, his astral form shimmering like a golden phantom. Gustav descended slowly, his feet touching down on familiar soil. He stood in the heart of a bustling city, its streets filled with people going about their daily lives. But no one noticed him. He was invisible, his presence undetectable to those around him. He marveled at the sights and sounds of the city, the hustle and bustle of everyday life continuing without interruption. He walked through the crowded streets, his astral form gliding effortlessly among the people. He saw children playing in a park, their laughter filling the air. He passed by a street musician, the melody of their guitar blending with the city's ambient noise. Every detail was vivid, every sound crystal clear. As he wandered, Gustav felt a deep connection to the world he had once called home. He moved through neighborhoods, each one filled with memories. He passed by old cafes and even saw the MBO Tower. Gustav wondered what more the three in one golden body could do, and tried to tap into other abilities. However, the strain was still immense, and eventually Gustav felt himself slipping again. He instantly disconnected from Earth as the golden glow faded, with his body reverting to its original state. He gasped for breath in exhaustion. "You did it," Stark said in admiration. "You held it for longer this time." Earth, in EBS apartment, the activities of the city outside provided a comforting background to the intimate setting inside. The room was warmly lit, casting a golden glow that highlighted the smooth, modern furnishings and the personal touches that made it feel like home. Alevra lay relaxed in EGS' arms, her head resting on his chest. It was a rare moment of vulnerability from her, a side she only showed to him. "We need to figure out what to do about Rhea," Alevra said softly, breaking the comfortable silence. "I know they're using him as bait to lure Gustav out." He nodded, his hand gently stroking her hair. "Yeah, it's clear as day. But this whole narrative about Gustav being a villain has gone on long enough. We have to clear his name." Alevra looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. "How? The entire universe believes he's a planet destroyer and the leader of the Gustavo Alliance." ES' gaze was steady. "I've documented all of Gustav's exploits since he went on the run. Every planet he's saved, every act of heroism. We need to get this information out there. But more importantly, we need to figure out who's really running the Gustavo Alliance and bring back credible evidence that Gustav was never involved." Alevra sighed, with her brow furrowing. "That won't be easy. He'll have to travel off-planet to track them down." And she hesitated, her usual confidence wavering. "I don't want to be so far from you." E chuckled, a warm, reassuring sound. There's that fragile side showing. He teased gently. The side most people never get to see. Elevra pouted. A rare and endearing sight. Don't make fun of me. He pulled her closer, kissing the top of her head. I'm not making fun of you. I'm just reminding you that it's okay for you to not act like you're Superman all the time. It's our job to make sure our friends are okay, and that includes Gustav and Rhea. She smiled softly, snuggling closer to him. You're right. Their conversation shifted as their proximity deepened the connection between them. EE's hand moved from her hair to her cheek, tilting her face up so their eyes met. There was an unspoken understanding in his gaze, a promise of support and love. Slowly, he leaned down and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle at first, a tender exploration that quickly grew more passionate. Elevra responded eagerly, her arms wrapping around his neck as she deepened the kiss. EE's hands roamed her back, pulling her even closer. As their lips moved in perfect sync, Elevra's fingers threaded through his bushy hair, anchoring herself to him as the world outside faded away. The only thing that mattered was the here and now. They broke apart for a moment, both breathing heavily. He looked into her eyes, his voice a whisper. You're so beautiful. She smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. You're beautiful too. That makes me feel girly. It's okay for you to not act like Superman all the time. She repeated words to him, causing both of them to chuckle in response. Their lips met again, more urgently this time. EE's hands found the hem of her shirt, sliding under the fabric to touch her warm skin. Elevra gasped softly at the sensation, her body arching into his touch. The kiss deepened, a fiery exchange that left them both breathless. He guided her gently onto her back, his body covering hers as they continued to kiss. The world outside ceased to exist, leaving only the two of them in their bubble of love and desire. EE's lips left hers, trailing kisses down her neck and collarbone. Elevra moaned softly, her hands gripping his shoulders as he worshipped her with his mouth. Every touch, every kiss was a promise of his love and devotion. Author's note. Y'all know what happens next, shushing face, so let's get this. 1 hour later, eventually, they lay tangled together, unclad underneath the sheets. Their heavy breathing slowed as the intensity ebbed. East held Elevra close, his fingers gently tracing patterns on her skin. Elevra nestled against him, her head resting on his chest once more. Well, find a way, he murmured, his voice filled with determination. Well, clear Gustav's name and save Rhea. Elevra nodded, her eyes drifting closed. I know we will. Together. He kissed the top of her head, a smile playing on his lips. Together. Back on planet Argon, the surroundings had returned to their serene state. The sky was a stunning gradient of purples and blues. The air was crisp and fragrant, and the landscape was a verdant paradise. Gustav and Stark sat on a grassy knoll, surrounded by a feast brought by Salethiel. The spread was vast, featuring succulent meats, vibrant fruits, and a variety of dishes that delighted the senses. Salethiel stood nearby, her presence adding to the surreal atmosphere. Miss Amy would always speak so fondly of you, Lord Gustav, she said with a soft smile. She was incredibly proud of your achievements and always knew you would surpass any challenge set before you. Gustav paused, a piece of fruit halfway to his mouth. She talked about me that much? All the time, Salethiel confirmed. She even mentioned some incidents, and one of them was when your little thumb— Stop. I think you've said enough, Gustav voiced with a wry smile. How could she tell them about that? Damn you, Miss Amy, Gustav cursed internally. Stark, wiping his mouth with a cloth, leaned back with a contented sigh. This food is incredible. I've never tasted anything like it. Gustav nodded in agreement, but his thoughts were elsewhere. After finishing their meal, Gustav turned to Salethiel. Do you have any idea where Miss Amy is? Like her real physical form? Salethiel shook her head. Our creator said she would reveal her location to you when the time was right. She instructed me to make sure you rest tonight. She will contact you when she's ready. Gustav let out a sigh of resignation. All right. Thank you, Salethiel. As night fell, Gustav and Stark found themselves a comfortable spot to rest. The sky above was a display of twinkling stars, and the air was cool and refreshing. Gustav lay on his back, staring up at the heavens, while Stark was already snoring softly beside him. Achieving the 3 in one golden body is a major feat. You should be proud of yourself. It's just as rare as achieving cosmic superiority. The system's voice echoed in his mind. Chapter 1489, Warp Demolator Fragment. Chapter 1489, Warp Demolator Fragment, Author's Note. Unedited chapter. Gustav closed his eyes, feeling the exhaustion in his bones. I know, but I can't shake this feeling of unease. It's like something is brewing. What makes you feel that way? The system inquired. Gustav took a deep breath, trying to pinpoint the source of his anxiety. I don't know. Maybe it's because nothing ever goes as planned. Every time I achieve something significant, it feels like a storm is waiting just around the corner. That is understandable, goofball, given your experiences. But you've always risen to the challenge, haven't you? Gustav nodded slightly. Yes, but this feels different. There's a weight to it. It might be because you have a year left to complete your 5-year quest, the system suggested. Gustav sighed deeply. I hope that's all it is, and nothing more. I can't shake this feeling. As he pondered, Stark approached. Hey, man, Stark began, settling down beside him. How are you holding up with the whole Angie situation? Gustav's gaze darkened, and he took a deep breath. I don't know, man. She's trapped in a dimension that threatens our plane, and it's governed by Falco's father. Stark's eyes widened. Falco's father? Gustav nodded gently. Yes, Falco's father is the lord of that dimension. Angie is still trapped there even though we freed Falco, and it's been a nightmare trying to figure out how to get her back. Stark shook his head in disbelief. I can't even imagine. How did you free Falco? Gustav recounted the events with a somber tone. We visited Zelio's tower to gather information on how to get there, so we can rescue both of them. But then things went in an entirely different route than we planned. Stark listened intently, his expression shifting from curiosity to shock and sympathy. He hadn't heard about the MBO run-ins with the half-dark and white being since they kept it under the wraps, but he was incredibly shocked that she could go toe-to-toe with the strongest mixed blood. And do you have plans to rescue her yet? Gustav clenched his fists, frustration evident in his voice. As much as I want to, it's not something I can just snap my fingers and be done with it. I have to put a lot of thought into everything I do, but I will definitely get her back one day. Stark placed a reassuring hand on Gustav's shoulder. You know, it'll help in any way I can. Just say the word. Gustav managed a small, grateful smile. Thanks, Stark. I appreciate it. They sat in silence for a while, the weight of their conversation hanging in the air. Finally, Stark broke the silence. So, tell me more about what's been happening. What else have you faced since we last saw each other? Gustav leaned back, staring at the sky again. Where do I even begin? The night wore on as Gustav recounted more tales of his battles, his struggles, and the moments of victory that kept him going. Stark listened, absorbing every word, his admiration for Gustav growing with each story. They talked until the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon, the sky shifting from deep blues to vibrant pinks and oranges. They were both powerful mixed bloods, so they could stay days without a wink of sleep. Gustav and Stark had a quick breakfast, exchanging a few words before Salethiel arrived to escort Gustav to another part of the structure for meditation. As they walked, Salethiel guided Gustav through a series of winding paths. The air grew cooler, and the environment changed to one of quiet tranquility. They arrived at a secluded area nestled within a grove of trees. The ground was covered in soft, moss-like grass, and a gentle stream flowed nearby, its water shimmering with a blue glow. The atmosphere was peaceful, almost sacred, providing an ideal environment for deep meditation. Miss Amy's projection materialized before Gustav. "Good morning, kiddo," she greeted him. "Morning, Miss Amy," Gustav replied, settling down cross-legged on the mossy ground. "What exactly is the end goal here? I know achieving the 3-in-1 golden body is important, but the warp demolator has vanished. There's no chance of me getting to the stagnant, siderous void now." Miss Amy smiled softly. "There is a chance, Gustav. That is why you needed to achieve the 3-in-1 golden body. It's not over yet." Gustav's brow furrowed in curiosity. "What do you mean?" "Follow me," Miss Amy instructed, her projection moving toward a hidden path partially obscured by the dense foliage. Gustav rose and followed her with an expression of curiosity. The hidden path led to a concealed door embedded within a rocky outcrop. Miss Amy's projection passed through it effortlessly, and Gustav pushed it open, stepping into a dimly lit chamber. As his eyes adjusted to the low light, he saw what appeared to be a containment field in the center of the room. Within it was a swirling, grayish sandy substance that seemed to pulse with a strange energy. Gustav's eyes widened in shock. "Is that warp demolator?" Miss Amy nodded. "Yes, a fragment of it. I contained it here for you. This is your key to reaching the stagnant, siderous void. The strange entity I met in the past," Miss Amy added, "told me that you would need this, so I created it." Gustav's disbelief was visible. "You created this for me?" Miss Amy nodded. "Yes, it was a challenging task, but the entity's instructions were clear. I knew I had to prepare you for this moment." Gustav's mind raced. Everything was beginning to make sense. "So, that's why the entity directed me here." "Precisely," Miss Amy said. "But you still need to train your 3-in-1 golden body to maintain its form longer. Only then will you be ready to use the warp demolator." Gustav approached the containment field, examining the warp demolator fragment. The energy it radiated was proof that it was definitely the warp demolator. Unlike the usual size that would be swallowing planets up, this was just around the size of a building. Gustav nodded, understanding the gravity of the task before him. "So, I need to master maintaining the 3-in-1 golden body. For longer." "Precisely," Miss Amy confirmed. "Take your time, Gustav." Gustav took a deep breath and sat down before the containment field, closing his eyes to begin his meditation. The serene environment, coupled with the gentle sound of the nearby stream, helped him focus. He began the process of aligning his soul, mental form, and body, striving to achieve the perfect balance required for the 3-in-1 golden body. Hours passed as Gustav meditated, his body occasionally glowing with a faint golden hue. Each time he neared the transformation, he felt the intense connection to realms beyond human understanding, but maintaining it for more than 3 minutes proved challenging. Nevertheless, he persevered, driven by the need to reach the stagnant, siderous void and uncover the answers he sought. As dusk settled over Agon, Gustav felt a surge of energy within him. The golden glow enveloped his body, and this time he held on to it for a few moments longer than before. Miss Amy's projection appeared once more, her expression proud. "You're making significant progress, Gustav. Keep going." Gustav opened his eyes, the golden glow fading as he exhaled deeply. "Thank you, Miss Amy. I'll keep at it until I've mastered it." The projection smiled warmly. "I know you will. Rest now and regain your strength. Tomorrow is another day. Gustav nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment despite the challenges ahead. The night passed uneventfully, and as dawn broke, Gustav rose with renewed determination. He continued his meditation, each session bringing him closer to maintaining the golden form for longer periods. The serene environment and Miss Amy's guidance were invaluable. By midday, Gustav had managed to sustain the 3-in-1 golden body for several minutes, feeling the immense power coursing through him. Falco, Endrik, and Eldris worked diligently on Gustav's spacecraft. They were on a planet known as Verdantia, an emerald gem nestled in the far reaches of galaxies. Verdantia was a breathtaking world, teeming with life. Towering trees with leaves like shimmering jade, vines that glowed with an inner light, and flowers with petals that pulsed softly in the evening air. The inhabitants, the Verdantians, were a peaceful and wise race of plant people, their bodies adorned with vibrant foliage and bark-like skin. "Hand me the plasma wrench," Eldris said to Falco with his hand outstretched. He looked up at the majestic canopies above, their soft light casting a greenish hue over everything. "This place is incredible, isn't it?" Falco, with his hands deep inside an engine compartment, nodded. "It sure is. Almost makes you forget why we're here." He glanced over at Endrik, who was securing some wiring near the ship's hull. "How's it coming along?" Endrik frowned, concentrating on his task. "Slow but steady. We need the ship in top condition if we're going to make it to wherever Rhea is being held." Eldris sat back on his haunches, taking a moment to appreciate the lush surroundings. "I've been thinking about that. Rhea could be back on Earth, or worse, he could be with the Alliance." You're tuning into the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.